My name is Nathan Mott. I'm a multi-season challenger and coach for the Jungle Academy. This is my guest series where I bring on an expert in a particular champion and we compare their gameplay in challenger to an emerald player. We'll be covering Rakan, and to join me I have Coach Cupcake, head coach of our support players in the bot lane academy. He's a former professional player and one of the best support players in the Oceanic region. Let's get into the details. Coach Cupcake, Rakan. That's what we're going to be covering today. We're going to start off with the runes, item build, all that. So Rakan's champ identity, and how does that align with the items that we take and we're looking to build?
Right. So Rakan is a lot about fighting and being able to have quite a lot of uptime on your fights. So what we're going to notice in the build is we're going to be building quite a lot of ability haste and health. So health is just a generically good stat for supports. And then otherwise, we're just prioritizing a lot of ability haste. We're going Boots of Lucidity, which is a little bit rarer nowadays. We're going Ultimate Hunter down in the rune. Down in the domination tree there. And so we want to have our flash up as much as possible with Lucidities. We want to have our ult up as much as possible with Ultimate Hunter. And we're just giving ourselves as much of a chance to be able to fight a lot and to have relatively short cooldowns to be able to keep fighting.
So is there cookie cutter a build that you go every single game, or do you adapt it based on the support matchups or whatever?
Right. Yeah, so it's going to be a very consistent build. Honestly, this is not the best time to be a chef in the kitchen for Rakan's runes and items. I tried a little bit of Boots of Swiftness. It wasn't performing as well with Boots of Lucidities. What I am going to just mix and match a little bit is the runes in the Resolve tree. So if I feel like I can ever find Demolish procs, then I'm going to go Demolish, because Font of Life is not feeling as good as it has in the past. If it's a really brutal lane matchup, I'll consider Second Wind, although Rakan's kit is great at minimizing without needing Second Wind either, so that's an extreme as well. Otherwise, your champion is just so good at minimizing and getting through the laning phase that you don't really need to index too much into weird runes or even rune shards to be able to get through. We just want to be able to do as much as possible once we get out of lane in those skirmishes.
So this game here looks really stock standard for you. Is this what you'll do? You go Lucid Boots. We're going Zeke's. Where's the lockets?
Yeah.
So Zeke's into
Yes.
locket. That's what you do.
Yeah, so this game was just a little bit different because I was versed quite a lot of healing. I think there was a Vlad and a Janna, and so I wanted to get an Oblivion Orb because we really need to get on top of them and kill them, especially with my active topside champions. So I wanted to fight and to kill. So that's a little bit different. Otherwise, stock standard, rush Lucidities. The most you can delay Lucidities is with Ruby Crystal if you really need the health in a more volatile lane, or if you don't have great gold on back. Otherwise, Lucidities into Zeke's into Locket, and you're prioritizing Kindle Gems when you are building those completed items. Pretty standard.
So you're just spamming Kindle Gems for the 10 ability haste. That's what you love. Health and ability haste. That's what it looks like.
Exactly.
What we get in. Okay. And then third item. So we're liking, Zeke's, Locket. We're liking third item Redemption. What does the third item typically look like?
Yeah. So third item is typically going to be between Knight's Vow or Redemption. It just depends how badly you need the defensive stats that Knight's Vow provides, as opposed to if you feel like you have a little bit more freedom, Redemption can do a lot. So that's Rakan's weakness, is kind of getting one shot. If he gets locked down and blown up, he's just pretty squishy and he's going to die. So that's going to be a little bit game dependent. If I'm feeling a little bit greedy, I'll go Redemption before Knight's Vow. If I need that armor, or maybe I'm having a really strong ADC that I can kind of peel a little bit more, then Knight's Vow makes sense. But honestly, that's not going to be the biggest decision. As long as you're building a Kindle Gem item, you're going to be in a fine spot.
So let's say if the general community agrees with you here, Cupcake. Actually, my first question here probably should have gone into it. So can you explain to me the difference between all these support items? These are 5 different support items here, right? So you've got 5 to choose from. So how do these work?
Yeah, so, I mean, once you get your quest completion, once you have gotten the 800 gold or whatever it is to be able to unlock the actual support quest item, then it turns into these items that have very strong effects, right? And
so is that the Blessing of Mountain here? It's like Blessing of the Mountain, Go In, Sled In, Dreammaker, Spellblade, and Voided Explosion. That's really what you're buying for. They're all the same stats or whatever. but you get the upgrade that you're
Yeah.
buying it for. Okay.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, so Celestial Opposition makes you a bit tankier, harder to one-shot. Solstice Slay is the next one, and that is just kind of generically useful. Sometimes bit of health, bit of movement speed. Dream Maker is the next one, a little bit more about healing and keeping an ADC alive. Blood Song is a bit more about doing damage and killing as an engager. Not very good on Rakan, but it's an option. And then the Zazax one down the end is good for mages. That's just a little bit of extra damage on spells.
So you're just going Celestial Opposition most games?
So this is going to be situational. Unfortunately, Rakan doesn't use any of these exceptionally well. I have played around with a bit of Blood Song because that is the best performing engager support quest item, although Rakan just doesn't use it well because he doesn't weave in auto attacks naturally like a Leona or a Nautilus would. Celestial Opposition is good when you're against a lot of short range bursts so that you can't get burst. Solstice Slay is good just generically. If you want to turn your brain off and one trick something, Solstice Slay will be fine. Dreammaker, I've started to appreciate Dreammaker a little bit more. I think it might be a little bit underrated for Rakan, and it gives consistent value in numbers. It just doesn't give a nice, satisfying visual. But honestly, like this decision is not going to be the biggest deal. You can make an argument for each one, and Rakan is just not in a great spot to abuse any of the strong support quest items.
So if you pick up Learning and Rakan and you have like a default you can recommend, which one would it be?
Solstice Slay.
Solstice Slay, okay. So it looks like, which is interesting, the pick rate of Celestial, the community picks it 65% of the time. This is in Emerald Plus, by the way, support. Solstice Slay is 28% of the time they're picking it, and then these are all just dropped off like 2% of the time. So why aren't people picking up Solstice Slay?
Yeah, I think the community is very stubborn in changing their runes or items. So we saw Unflinching be picked for 3 or 4 years when it was an awful rune. I think Celestial Opposition is just like the go-to support quest item in people's minds, and they'll also see it picked a lot in pro play because pro play is more about those like more controlled fighting environments. So they shouldn't. You can see the win rate does not perform as well, and that we can't read into that too much. But Celestial Opposition is not one that you just always pick, and I would also heavily discourage it for lower elos as well, because that's just another thing you have to think about, right? You have to preserve that cooldown, kind of like preserving bone plating stacks. You have to think about it to get more value out of it. Otherwise, it's just going to get popped and you're going to get no value. So that's why I like Dreammaker and Solstice, is it always gives value and you don't really have to think about it either.
It looks like the community agrees with you here on Lucidity Boots. This is most picked by far. Merc Treads, when would you build Merc Treads? Would you ever build Merc Treads?
I would, when you are against a lot of lockdown. And like we were saying before, Rakan is weak against just getting locked down and one shot. So, if there is some hard CC, then you're going to need to chuck this in there. Now, it is quite an expensive decision because if you don't have Lucidities, you're going to miss that ability haze. You're going to miss that flash cooldown reduction. So I try to be a bit greedy and try to solve that issue with positioning rather than itemization, but that's a bit harder to execute. So Merc Treads is totally fine in the right situation.
So you're really trying to go lucid. I mean, look at the Lucidity Boots here. Ability haste, summon spell haste. It's just everything that you're describing with the champ identity, right? So you really want this.
Yeah. So Lucidity's got a huge nerf recently where it went from 20 ability, I'll say recently, but in the last 6 months or so, where it went from 20 ability haste to 10 ability haste. That's a huge nerf. And so this is kind of tying into Rakan not being in the best spot to abuse runes or items right now. This is just his best option. When it was 20 ability haste, it felt amazing. Rakan was fantastic. And now we were trying out Swifties, we're trying out Symbiotic, but it's just you do miss some form of ability haste and that flash cooldown reduction. So the Boots is great for him, but the Boots is not in a great spot in the meta currently.
Okay, sort of your first item outside, obviously, your support item. Looks like the community heavily disagrees with you here, Cupcake. We've got 58% pick rate on Locket, 21% on Zeke's. So why do you, again, is this the stubborn community?
Yep. You just pick any melee support and they'll have Celestial Opposition and Locket as the most purchased, just without thought. Okay. So I don't think we need to read into this one too much. That's just the generic support tank item in people's minds. Rakan is a fantastic user of Zeke's, and it synergizes with what he wants to do a lot of the times, which is fight. And he stays on top of people with his ults, and he can get a lot of value out of the passive. And he's not really about sitting back and peeling too much with Locket in most situations. He wants to go forward and kill people. And, Zeke's is great for that.
Yeah, that the cast your ultimate summons a storm around you for 5 seconds. The storm deals magic damage, and that, yeah, I mean, that early in the game, it's like Locket, yeah, it doesn't seem that useful to me in like those early skirmishes. You're either gonna like win or lose. Like that's not going to be the difference. It feels like.
Yeah, so in some games, when your identity is more about peeling, disengaging, counter-engaging, then Celestial Opposition and Locket would make sense. But a lot of the times, you're up against ranged matchups, or you want to be a part of fights and you want to have a number advantage fight and kill people, and then those really aren't going to do too much. So there's a time and place to be defensive, but it's a lot less frequent than the stats are making it out to be.
Looks like fourth item. You mentioned these two items. Looks like the community agrees with you here. Cupcake, we've got Knight's Vow, we've got Redemption. You said, based on sort of situational, but you said you can sort of just pick whatever. Thorn Mail. Like, so tell me about Thorn Mail and Shirelias. Because I feel like Shirelias, synergizes as well with Rakan, right? Why is this not really you mentioned?
Yeah, the thing is, Rakan, you can really notice when you don't have any tankiness in an item, and then you just get one shot by anything. So, like, at some stage in your build, you'll feel tanky enough to be able to dip into. I mean, Shirelias is a bit of an extreme because there's absolutely no tankiness there. That's why I was saying Redemption is like, it gives you some health, some ability haste. It also gives you some really useful utility. So it's very greedy and very rare to be able to have the freedom to build an item like Shirelias. I think maybe in lower elos, you can get away with these type of greedy decisions a little bit more often than higher elos. But yeah, the thing is, you're just going to get one shot, and you're trying to patch up getting one shot as much as possible in your build, and it just feels pretty brutal to build an item like Chevaliers.
I mean, obviously, a lot support players very rarely get to like fourth, fifth items, right? So, do you build Thormail? I didn't really see Thormail on any of your builds or Bramble Vest. You don't care about you don't think your job is to build healing reduction. It's your teammates' jobs. You did go that Rakan one where you would go the Oblivion Orb.
Yeah, so Thormail is an awful item, I think, especially on Rakan. When you would want to apply heal cut is when you're killing someone, typically, and Thormail requires you to get hit. And also Rakan is not a typical frontliner getting hit and getting a lot of value out of this. So Oblivion Orb is just a much better applicator of heal cut because you're going in and then you're stopping them from healing and sustaining up rather than hoping that they hit you and apply it to themselves. And of course, Thornmail, 0 ability haste, really bad for Rakan.
Yeah. And yeah, it looks like not many people do pick it, so but it is picked.
It's a bit inflated again because people see melee support and think Locket, Thornmail, Celestial. So
the last item I want to mention is the Mikhail's Blessing. It's obviously been a very popular, general support anti-CC item across the years. Why are we seeing this drop off recently?
I mean, it's always been a situational item, right? Like if you are against hard CC, then you will see it. Now, I don't think that solo queue supports. I think that a lot of the times you just see people build the same thing without much thought. You'll see this quite a lot in pro play, actually, when you are against an Ashe or Leona or a Sejuani or whatever the case may be. And it is a very effective item in those situations, but I don't have a great reason as to why it's not seeing much play, other than people don't really like to change their builds much, and it is situational to begin with anyway. But it's a great item for Rakan if it has a lot of value in the game.
All right, I think that wraps up items. Unless you have anything else you want to mention, any narratives around items or anything you've seen over your years of coaching, Cupcake?
Yeah, I would just say to have a think about how much threat there is in the game. And if there is a lot of threat in the game, then give them the respect they deserve with more health. And if there's low threat in the game, sometimes you're against champions with low CC, right? Master Yi, Shyvana, whatever the case may be, then you can build a little bit more greedy and squishy and get away with things. But yeah, the vast majority of the time, I think ability haste and health is the way to go for Rakan.
Give us a quick example, Cupcake, of a greedy, squishy build that you could go if someone wants to be like, I want to be like really, psychopath Rakan. What would that look like?
Bloodsong Lucidities, Zeeks, and then Redemption Chevaliers, or you can even skip Redemption and just go straight Chevaliers. And then we're going to struggle to really build psychotic items from there. Mandate's not in the best spot. Rakan isn't the best abuser of it. Helia is okay as a first item, but I think we're really going to struggle to get too crazy with the Rakan items. So maybe just Staff of Flowing Water and Chevaliers if you want to get crazy with it.
So let's go back now here, Cupcake, to runes. You say you like to adapt this a little bit. So explain to me the whole demolish thing. So let's look at the specific team comps. Why are you going demolish here? Why are you allowed to get demolish procs this game?
Yeah, so I mean, we have a Draven, and we're against a. It doesn't even really matter what the enemy lane is. Draven is just such a lane warping champion that I'm very confident that I will be able to find demolish procs. Now, the other thing is that I am testing it, and so I want to see how often I get to proc it, even if I'm not in a really dominant lane, because maybe I roam top, find a dive, get some plates. Maybe I hit mid plate after I roam mid, or maybe you never know. And I think demolish might be in a little bit of a better state than Font of Life to begin with, but especially in matchups where I feel like we have the advantage, then I'll look to go demolish.
So if someone's sort of not confident in demolish, you'll just recommend just Font of Life. Yeah, this is just the best to go for this one.
Yeah, Font of Life, turn your brain off and you'll get value. Demolish, you kind of have to use it actively.
And Guardian, the main rune, is this consensus? There's no other rune you should ever see anyone go, or is there some things you can cook with here?
If you want to cook, I guess Airy would be the next thing you could consider. If you aren't up against much threat, Airy is going to be fine. I think, yeah, it's hard to skip the green tree though, because Rakan just uses Revitalize quite well. He appreciates the bone plating to never get one shot as the game goes on, and he is one of the best users of Guardian. He's always going to be close to someone and provide that shield, which is very useful for both of you. So if you want to be a bit psychotic, then you can consider Airy instead and just do maybe a little bit more damage, maybe move around the map a little bit faster.
And then explain your decision process between bone plating and second wind again. So second wind,
yeah.
So Ezreal Janna here, is that because they have heavy poke?
They have a couple range champions, and I was also just kind of seeing what numbers it was providing. So historically, I've been a bone plating hater just in general, because people just take it all the time without thought, and it just falls off with a random spell or auto attack. You don't get value out of it. I don't take it for lane. I take it for the mid to late game, where you face check and I don't know, a Kha'Zix is jumping on you and trying to one-shot you, and then you survive. So I don't think Rakan needs to invest in resources to help him get through lane, because his entire kit does that. And then I'd rather do bone plating for later on in the game. And only if I really feel like I need to stop some poke, I'll go second wind.
Revitalize obviously makes sense here, because gain 5% heal and shield power. You obviously have healed and shielding. You'd never go anything else here, or is people go other things?
I don't think there's an argument to go anything else ever. We're just going to heal and shield quite a lot throughout the game.
And how does this deep ward rune work? So you talked about how ultimate just makes a lot of sense for the ability haste for Rakan. How does deep ward work?
Yeah, so I want to start off by saying there's literally no alternative in the red tree. I want Ulti Hunter, and then all of the other options are just pretty awful. So deep ward actually is quite useful, luckily. So you're just going to get a healthier and longer lasting ward if you place it in the enemy side of the map, past the river. When the game gets a little bit later, then that counts from the river and onwards as well. So this is useful. You don't have to think about it too much. You can min-max it and try to get your wards past river, and then just having wards that last longer and take one extra auto to clear is quite useful. People might not think it, but it takes more of an investment to clear it. People might not be able to clear it in time, or you might spot people when the ward otherwise would have disappeared. So it's just kind of like good invisible value throughout the game.
And your stats, ability haste, already talked about how important this is. Why do we go double scaling here? We don't go flat health or the movement speed or whatever. Do you go this every game?
Yep. So Rakan's kit is good at minimizing, so we don't need runes or items to help him to do so. So let's just scale up past the lane as much as possible. We're never going to need flat health, because we just have so much in our kit to help us not get one shot. We have so much mobility, so much sustain.
And last thing, skill order. Is this cookie cutter every single game? Do you switch things up? If you invade, do you start W?
I will almost, this is basically almost every game. The only switch up, if you go to my latest game, I put 2 points Q. And so sometimes when there's an extended lane, I will have 2 points Q into W max. Just if I want to really sustain a tricky lane or win a lane that I think is going to last longer, harder, right? So here I'm with a Caitlyn. I don't want to leave Caitlyn too much. We're against a Vlad ADC. I want to put the hit on them for as long as possible, and 2 points Q will help me to do that. Otherwise, 8 or 9 out of 10 times we're going straight W max, because when you reach the mid to late game, you want to have as many points in your W as possible so you can have as much threat to fight, because that's basically what we're doing on Rakan.
So your entire champ that is basically your W. Your W is such an important ability.
Fighting is crucial to winning games on Rakan. Laning phase and even wave management honestly matters less than most other supports. And so when you get to the stage of fighting, you've got to be able to execute. And he's a very unique and fluid champion, and you've got to understand how to use the spells together. Unfortunately, it's not as easy as just use W well. He's a very high skill ceiling champion, and I'm sure we'll see that when we get to the examples.
Okay, Cupcake, let's jump into the practice tool now and talk through abilities, combos. What are the things we need to really understand about the kit? We're going to assume that people sort of know sort of the baseline of what the abilities do. Maybe we know emphasize things a little bit more, but take us away here, sure. Cupcake. What do Rakan players need to know?
So your bread and butter combo and lane, at least, is going to be to like E on your ADC to be able to find the W, and then to land your Q, and then E away. So that's one part of the equation. The other is just like understanding that your champion gets unlocked at level 3. What I see a lot from students when they're learning Rakan is they're kind of W forwards when they're level 1 or 2, and then they just can't escape at all, and then they're squishy, they're immobile now, they get one shot and they die. So get to level 3 in one piece, and then once you are level 3, these are going to be 2 options, right? Like you jump on ADC, you find your W, you use your W to help you to land your Q, because now you're on top of them and you're short range, and your Q is very important to be able to land, and then you jump away afterwards. That's going to be like your proactive combo. If you're against high threat and you want to just peel and keep your ADC alive instead, then it's going to be pretty similar. You're just going to E onto your ADC when they get engaged on, find a nice and easy short range W onto the enemy, land a Q, and then, get your second E off as well. I think it is worth noting that how you cast your E is very important. The way that your E works is you end up on the other side of your ally from where you're pressing it, right? So that's why I'm saying you E onto your ADC from here, because we're going to end up over here. And then that makes our W easier to land. And then our second E is going to be cast from the front so that we end up behind. So this is something that trips up quite a lot of Rakan players as well, is they want to E to their ADC, but then they kind of do it from the side, and then they're over here, and then it's impossible to land your W. And then they just do something funky, and then their second E, and now they have no E, and they're up at the front. So you got to understand how your E works and use your first E to either get in position or, just help out your ADC. But your second E, because that's the last of your mobility, you have to end up in a safe position, basically.
How important, I was going to say quickly, how important is it to hit Q on this champion? Is it hard to hit Q? Q's a skill shot, is it?
Yeah, your Q is hard to hit, but it's very important to hit. This is what makes Rakan's laning phase basically so hard to punish, because it has an insane amount of sustain. So when you're against melee matchups, that's pretty easy to land, right? You're just going to kind of be on the lookout when they're going for last hits, or when they're in a bush, then you can land your Q pretty easily. Ranged matchups are going to be a little bit trickier, right? Because your Q is not that fast, it's not that long range, so you've just got to be a little bit more careful. And that's where you can do that combo, right? Where you kind of jump in and then you're up close and personal so that you can land your Q, and then you can kind of get out afterwards. Or you can look for what I call like a handshake trade. Like you're trading against them, they're trading against you. You're going to take some damage, you're going to land your Q, right? So just picture there's like a Janna here, and you're just running up at her, and then she's going to auto and W you, and then while she's autoing and Wing you, you can kind of land your Q. What you don't want to do is just kind of like fling it out max range and just hope it hits, because it's very tough to do so. So you basically need a reason to press your Q. You can't just fling it out against ranged.
Do you see a lot of your students just waste Qs a lot of the time, just throw things out because it's on no cooldown? So just to get the cooldown off, because like, oh, I'm helping, I'm contributing in the lane.
Yeah, and this is also a spell that can teach some mind games, honestly. Like a lot of the ways of how I land Qs, just put some enemies over here, is I'll pretend like I'm beelining towards the ADC and then just throw it on the sub, because the subs kind of relieve the pressure of me landing it on the ADC. And so like just however you can figure out a way to land your Q to make it as easy as possible, like you want to give it a go, because it's such an important spell to be able to land, to minimize lanes, as long as you're not just kind of see someone far away and just kind of hope it hits, because that's not going to work.
Okay, what else do we need to know here?
Understanding the limitations of your W. You're not a Nautilus, you're not a Pike, you're not a Blitzcrank, you're not even a Leona. This is a pretty short range and quite a slow, clunky engage. And so this is what makes Rakan one of the reasons why he has a lot less threat than a typical engager. So what I want you to look for is short to mid-range Ws. This is a max range W. People are going to walk out of it, right? But if you find a short to mid-range W, the knock up happens faster. So basically it has two components, right? You travel, and then once you've reached your destination, you on the ground, you do the knock up, right? If you don't have to travel much, the knock up is instant, like that. If you do have to travel, then it takes a lot longer. It's much easier to dodge. So without overcomplicating it, short to mid-range Ws is what you want to be on the lookout for, right? And if that means that you are kind of springboarding off of an ally so that you, let's put it a little bit closer maybe, you're springboarding off of an ally so that you have a shorter range W, you're going to land that. If you're disengaging, right, they're jumping onto your ADC, you can find a shorter mid-range W pretty easily as well. Otherwise, it's just a lot about patience, right? Let's say that we're kind of chasing down this dummy over here, and we're not just going to like freak out and immediately press W once they're close to max range. We're going to kind of walk at them, we're going to cut them off, we're going to walk, and then if we can find that short mid-range W, then we press it. So it's just kind of like understanding that it's not easy to land this against ranged champions again, and then helping yourself find opportunities to still do so.
Yeah, now that I think about it, Rakan is actually really annoying when I'm ganking for the disengage. It's not them like engaging. It's like that short, because it guarantee hit W. Like it's such a big circle, and it's, you know, as you said, that travel distance time. Yeah, it's really annoying. So the peeling aspect of Rakan seems very, the zero counterplay to it theoretically, right?
Yeah, he's a great disengager and counter engager, but he's not a good primary engager because of the limitations with his W. So if you're trying to jump on top of Rakan,
I feel like that's what everyone thinks is a primary. So you actually think of it more so, most of the time, the practical way you're using Rakan is as a sort of a counter and disengage, not so much engage.
He's a counter engager or a secondary engager. So if you have someone in front of you, if I have a Xin Zhao or a Jarvan going in, beautiful, I'll follow up nice and easily. If I have to do it myself, then there's just a Rakan trying to run at you, and then his W is pretty short range, and you can just kind of walk away. So he excels the most as a counter engager, and he does a really good job as a secondary engager. He can struggle with primary engage. If he has his flash, you can make it work, and that's kind of why we take Lucidity Boots as well. But it's not his strongest suit.
Great. What do we need to know? What are some common mistakes you see people with the R, people using R? Should you use it really early in a fight?
Right.
Late? Like, so what do you see? Or is it literally just that concept of, you know, being a secondary engage?
Yeah. So this is a really hard spell to teach and to get a consistent value out of. I think the number one thing is just to be ambitious with it. A lot of times you don't need to ult. Let's say this ADC here is getting jumped on. Maybe you can just disengage with an EWQE, right? Maybe you don't have to invest your ults to peel them, and then you want to be on the lookout for that. Or maybe we're jumping on someone and they're immobile and they have no flash and they're going to die, and so maybe we don't need to ult. Maybe we can just W them. So be ambitious, be greedy, and kind of limit test when you don't need to use your ult first, because that's the most common thing, just ults being wasted. Now, what a good ult will look like is, one of the ways is we kind of like group enemies up and find a 2-man W. So what that would look like is it'll be hard to knock up these 2 people here right now, right? Like they're not going to climb, they're just going to move away. But if I have my ults, I can kind of charge at them and then kind of hit one, group the other, and then they're charmed, and then I bring them into the W together.
So the dummies don't move, but typically it sucks people in.
Yeah.
The dummies don't move. Okay, yeah, it just doesn't see on the dummies. Yeah.
Yep. Another thing is if you know they have flash, right? A good player is just going to flash that W, right? They just see it, they're going to flash it. But if you just kind of run at them and then you hold it, and then you just run up and then you charm them, you guarantee your W afterwards. Or if they freak out and then they end up flashing, then you follow that flash with your W. So just guarantee CC on a mobile target, which can be very useful. Otherwise, like the last kind of reference point I can give is if you can hit multiple people, then it's going to be good. So if there's an explosive fight going on and maybe our ADC here is getting engaged on, and then we kind of charm this fella up, and then we kind of hop around and charm some other people. And as long as you're not just using it willy-nilly, as long as it's not just one person that you wouldn't need to do it. Otherwise, it's just, it's really hard to summarize. Best place to start is be ambitious and ask yourself if you need to use it and understand what it does, right? Like, is that movement speed useful? Is that charm on that CC on the charm actually needed or not?
Great stuff. Anything else to finish off this section here, Cupcake?
I think that about sums it up.
Great. Let's move on. If you're serious about improving at ranked and want to join a community of over 5,000 like-minded, serious league players, we have our free school community, very, very active. And we also have the classroom here, climbing masterclass, champion pool masterclass, and solo queue tier list for improvement. There'll be a link in the description below, or head over to wtl.lol/school. So Cupcake, we're going to get into your game in high-elo now with Rakan, demonstrating a lot already what we've talked about. Before we jump into get into the details of your gameplay in this game here, I want to talk a little bit about where does Rakan currently sit in the meta? What's his strength? Where do you sort of view Rakan right now as the date of this recording?
Yeah, so due to the lucidity boost nerf and due to just the overall pace of the game slowly increasing, Rakan has had better times in the meta. So I used to blind him all the time and find amazing success. I think at the moment he is best suited as a counter pick to engage. I think that he does very well to minimize and to outscale melee matchups. And he can struggle quite a bit against disengage supports, which we're kind of seeing in this game in front of us.
Okay, so let's now talk about what you're thinking about. Level 1 here. What are some early lane phase reference points? What are we doing here? So I guess let's talk about, do you think about comps at all here? What are we thinking about?
I'm thinking about bot lane. I don't care about invade. I think that's a heavily overrated thing that people stress about too much. Normally people invade to try and get a free kill and then they leave. And if no one's there, then nothing happens. So I put a huge emphasis on controlling the lane, and what that control will look like will depend on the matchup, right? If I am in a very advantageous matchup, I'll take sweeper, I'll control the bushes. If I'm in a bit of a trickier or closer matchup, I'll take a trinket and then ward mid bush and stay in our bush, or stay in our bush and ward their third bush. It just basically comes down to how you match up level 1 and how much space you can take in the lane. Your default response would be Rakan is weak early on in lane. He's a very weak laner. He needs level 3 to be unlocked. So generally, we're probably just warding mid bush and then chilling and trying our best to get level 2 from there. But this game, I have a Caitlyn. They have a Vlad. So I'm probably going to be a little bit more ambitious.
You went demolish this game talking about your setup. Is that because you're still, experimenting, testing, and you just think that Caitlyn's going to be able to, you're going to get a lot of demolish procs this game?
Yeah, it's a time to test it because we're going to have a hard winning lane with the Caitlyn versus the Vlad.
And you're bone plating. You always said you're sort of anti-bone plating, Cupcake. Why bone plating this game? Because you said the Kha'Zix, right? Is it just for the Kha'Zix?
Yeah, for Rakan, I'm not anti-bone plating. That's just like in general, I don't like the rune. But like we were saying before, Rakan doesn't need second wind to sustain in lane. He has a great kit for that, so that's just for outer lane.
All right, so yeah, talk more about here. What do we do in level 1?
Yeah, so we're just going to occupy as much space in the lane as possible. What you can't see here is I'm actually, like Caitlyn is typing if she should ward mid bush or I say no. We get to stand in these bushes and we get to preserve the ward because this is the matchup, right? And so it's so important to understand the power of champions. And my Caitlyn is much stronger than their Vlad. And so I get to stand in here, I get to control the bush. Now, exactly where I'm standing in this bush is kind of important. I'm not standing on the edge looking for a fight. I'm standing closer to our side so that I can maintain vision of the bush and leave if I have to. But I'm not looking to fight. I kind of want to take Q level 1. I just want to get information and occupy space in the lane to begin with.
Why is it an error to walk on this side of the B than this side of the bush?
Yeah, so first of all, it'll likely bet your ADC to walk forwards with you, and we're not going to look for a fight there. We're just going to lose, where we don't have any tools to do much there. We're just going to fling out a Q and run for the hills, basically. So I just want to make sure my ADC doesn't walk up too far. I just want to get level 2 first, have control of the lane, and not look for early volatility, because Rakan does not thrive in that. Okay, so not a good start with the Q miss. Janna was in range, and I should have looked to Q when Janna was throwing out her auto attack on me. But the main idea here is I just want to try and get level 2. First, that's just a good rule of thumb for any support matchup, any game. You can see that I'm looking to auto attack the melees here, trying to execute and get to that level 2 spike. And then once I do hit level 2, I'll hopefully look to use that spike and be aggressive.
So you're hitting the melee minions because I guess they're safer to hit than the range ones. You just get poked by Janna and Vlad, right? So you're hitting the melees, try to get those minions, again, not last hitting them or stealing them from your Caitlyn, but you're trying to hit them so your Caitlyn can last hit them, and then you can get level 2 first.
Yeah, so first wave is typically posture menacingly in the bushes, and second wave is walk out and hit the melees. It's hard to find auto attacks on the wave as a melee, especially against a ranged matchup.
Okay. So you really look at your experience bar, and the moment you see the minions about to die, you're looking to walk forward, right? So you're like, I think you're already posturing here, right? Like it's going to die. Oh, sorry, it's three melees to get level 2, right? So it's the 1 wave and 3 melees. Yeah. Yes.
Yep.
So the moment this melee dies, you're going.
Yep. Now, fair play to the Janna for being ready to disrupt that. It is what it is.
Yeah.
We still take a favorable trade, and we have the shove, and we have control of the lane. And so this is kind of going to be at odds with what Rakan wants, right? Caitlyn wants to shove and poke and pressure and siege. Rakan wants to just kind of scale up out of lane and leave. But I'm going to adopt what my Caitlyn wants here because she's really good at it, and we're versus a really weak ADC. So I'm going to try to maintain the shove and just kind of go from there.
So a lot of people will be quite confused here, Cupcake, where people are saying like, you know, you're saying that you're not really looking to kill anyone, you're sort of looking to play to scale, but you're looking to be aggressive on level 2, and you're looking to like W and look for opportunities. And people are saying, well, like, why am I playing Rakan and I have this W ability, and why am I not allowed to like use it? If that makes sense.
Yeah. So I will look for opportunities to jump forward when I'm level 3 and onwards, or when I have a big reason to do so, right? If I'm level 2, they're level 1, that's a big reason to do so. Otherwise, it's just part of Rakan's identity. He doesn't have the most threat. It's tricky to go in and out. And if I'm against the Vlad, which is a very weak early ADC, like we've got to stress this. I have a lot of freedom against a champion like Vlad, more so than your typical ADC, because he's basically useless. So yeah, this VOD here won't be the best for like early lane patterns, but it is important to just understand what the champions around you mean, right? And if, as we can see here, I jumped in, I did my trade, I jumped out, no harm, no foul. If you jump in and you're not able to jump out and they're able to trade back on you, it's going to hurt quite a lot.
Let's go back and talk about this ward here, Cupcake. So warding, how do you feel about warding level, you know, in the early lane phase? You're holding your ward out, you guys both have both wards. So you want to ward straight after you've pushed in a wave. So the moment this wave's gone, you're starting to move and looking to ward.
Yeah, the time to do vision things is between waves. And the reason I want Trinket instead of Sweeper is because I have a Caitlyn and I want to maintain the shove, and that opens us up to potentially getting ganked.
So why ward here instead of the tri-bush?
Yeah, so this is a very greedy and difficult ward to get normally, but as we're saying, I have the freedom because their bot lane is really weak. So getting vision on camps is really valuable, no matter what game. Junglers are, inherently tied to camps. We're going to spot the jungler early on. It's going to be much less likely for people to play around vision on their camp rather than a predictable spot like Tribush. If the enemies had a sweeper, they're not sweeping the camps, they're sweeping the Tribush. So it's very difficult to walk around here and ward like this. But against a weak opponent, I'm Rakan with a W who can get out of a sticky situation anyway. I feel like I have the freedom to do so.
This is the deep ward rune coming into play here. You having that extra, again, it's really annoying as a jungler to clear this board. Like the extra auto attack, it feels like I'm wasting so much time, right? So that's the 4 auto attacks to kill a ward. That's usually 3 auto attacks.
Yep. It is worth noting that Tribush will be 4 as well because it's past river, but both of them are going to apply deep ward, and it is very valuable. Now you're going to see a lot of volatility, right? This is just trying to punish Vlad as much as possible. I want to abuse Caitlyn's laning power. I want to just try to increase the chaos and the volatility. If I was against a melee matchup or a scarier ADC, then maybe it's more about peeling, counter-engaging. But against ranged matchups, you want to be on the lookout for opportunities to fight and to get things going. It's just going to be tough to be able to do most of the time.
So if you're fishing for these, this max range W here, and you're saying to people in our practice tool demo, you shouldn't be max range W in. Why are you comfortable going for this W here?
Let me just have a look at this W again. I am pushing from the bushes as well, worth noting. I know that Vlad probably wants to walk up for one of these last hits. I think this is just a bit of a poorly placed W. I think the range is okay. I should have just been a little bit more straight on. And maybe it's just a bad W as well. Maybe I'm just trying to do too much when my champion can't really, support that. So, maybe I should really emphasize more short to mid-range Ws. Maybe I should be hugging the bushes a little bit more to find higher success on the Ws. And that's what I'm trying to look for here. I'm trying to get into the bush, playing a bit of a mind game there, pretending like I'm going to posture forwards, get a free Q off. We're going to find this W because he's walking predictably forwards for a last hit, and I'm in the bush, and I'm happy. I'm trading my W for his pool.
Let's look at what minion he's going for here. So your mindset is he's going to last hit this minion. Is that what you're Wing on? That's what you're Wing on. Okay, he misses it, and then you go forward. Yeah, okay. So you want to be Wing when they're looking to go for last hits. That's your window if you are going to max range W.
Yeah, look, you need a reason to press W. That's one of the reasons, right? Being able to land skill shots on last hits is a very consistent way to be able to land skill shots. And especially against ADCs, because they're the most predictable in walking up for last hits.
Just like you said, junglers are tied to their camps. Minions are tied to, champions are tied to minions.
Yep, absolutely.
Same thing, the cannon. Yeah, you're just doing it again and again here, right? So it's, 80 carries, people in League will die for a cannon. They don't care, right?
Yeah, I've killed people for cannons many times.
Do you have mana problems with Rakan? Do you have to be very conscious with your Ws? Do you think about, okay, I probably
it depends on the lane.
Lane phase?
Yeah, so in this lane, I'm trying to be very proactive, and I'm going to run out of mana pretty quickly. If it's more of a high threat lane, then it's not going to be as much spamming spells. It's going to be more about reacting and counter engaging. So yeah, on one hand, I am running through my mana. On the other hand, we're softening the enemies up, and my ADC staying healthy, and it's just going to get scarier and scarier for them to kind of walk up and contest minions. So I'm happy with the volatility.
Okay, and this looks like all the results of that constant, really good Ws, the trading. You're putting yourself, your team in a position to get these, these kills, win this 2v2.
Yeah, so the result of this is pretty awful, actually. The Nocturne just completely griefed all of our hard work. What I would be happy with is trading flash for flash. What I don't want to see is my jungle running under tower and donating the Vlad a kill. because we just did so much work to like
Yeah.
pressure all of his last hits. Look at Vlad. He's down 16 CS already, and now he has a red buff for sustain and a free kill. So that was game losing by the Nocturne. But I'm happy with the decision I made because I'm happy trading flash for flash. I flash forwards, I get a chunk, I get the Janna flash. I just want my Nocturne to not run under tower and die. Maybe I baited him, you could say that. But I think an important concept for Rakan is you need to be a bit of a psycho and to have zero hesitation. And if an opportunity presents itself, you got to pounce on it. If you hang around and you wait for, we're going to see this later in the game, if you wait for numbers to organize themselves and you kind of lose that X factor and that mobility and that surprise that you have in your kit. And yeah, just being able to pounce on opportunities with zero hesitation is very, very important.
Let's talk about this base here. So is this your ideal first base, getting lucidity boots and controlled and refill? Do you go refill a lot of the time?
Yep, refill is very good. I'm going to prioritize it in that order. Lucidity boots and then refill and then pink. Just turns out I could get all of them. But tier 2 boots is very important on most supports, especially Rakan, because we have that mobility. We don't really need the combat stats.
What happens if you can't buy tier 2 boots?
Yep, so then you can delay it by a ruby crystal if you think it's necessary in the situation. Otherwise, you just sit on an awkward amount of gold, and then next time you go home, you can get your boots.
Switch into sweeper. Do you always do that after you're on your first base?
Yeah, basically always. You want to be less tied into lane, and you want to find windows to link up with your jungle and relieve or put pressure on mid lane, and sweeper is going to do a better job to just make sure you're in fog when you're moving around. So yeah, I really like sweeper as the game goes on.
Okay, so this video, Cupcake, I imagine you're going to talk a lot about deploying out of base, your positioning, and where you're walking out of base. And I guess we're going to talk about the topic of roaming, right? So, because a lot of supports, roam, especially I think Rakan is a roaming support. So, a lot of people might be running towards bot lane here. Why are we roaming here? Why are we going this direction?
Yeah, so the first thing is there's literally nothing to achieve by roaming bot except to just soak XP with your ADC, which is just not how you're going to play League of Legends. So
why not? Why not look to get level 6 really quickly? Why do you not value the experience?
Yeah, I just value map pressure and lane states more than just. It's very expensive to show on the map. And if you watch high-elo, if you watch pro games, you're never going to see supports just right-click to a tower and soak XP, right? The way that you win games as support is not your gold and your XP. It's by creating win conditions and creating and using sources of pressure. So it's pretty general, but it's absolutely going to apply here. Now, there could be an exception, right? Maybe my mid and my jungle are in base, and then there's literally nothing to do on the map. Sure, I'll get some XP. But look what's happening, right? If I was under bot tower here, then all of this wouldn't be possible.
So let's talk about pressure, because pressure might be like a buzzword to people. People don't really understand what that is. So is pressure like having your body in the location? Is it like sweeping, using control ward here to deny? Is that like, what do you mean by pressure? Are these some of the things that
it's going to mean, it's going to look different in different situations, right? So I'm just going to be around mid, and then if I need to do something, I'll do it. If I need to help them shove into base, I will. If I think the enemy mid laner is overextended, I'll gank them. If I want to shove mid with my mid laner and then link up with my jungler, I can do that. If it just means I'm posturing in fog and denying the enemy team information of my whereabouts, I'll do that. So yeah, there's a lot that can happen, and there's always something for you to achieve if your mid lane is in lane. And then it's just about not feeling like you need to kill to have a successful roam. Sometimes it's creating fog, sometimes it's getting a base, sometimes it's forcing some cooldowns, but there's always something.
Okay, Demolish Procs coming in handy here, Cupcake.
Yep, there we go. So around this stage of the game, I'm starting to think about what I want. On one hand, on paper, I want to keep abusing bot lane with my Caitlyn. On the other hand, I know that this player isn't very good. I've observed if I spend time in a lane with someone, I can very quickly tell if they're going to be a win condition or not. And this Caitlyn is not going to be a win condition. So I'm kind of in two minds.
What makes you say that? How do you judge? How do you know that? What are you looking for when you're looking at a Caitlyn player?
Can they land their spells? Do they know recall timers? Do they know how to manage the wave well? Do they know the matchup? Everything is just awful. with this Caitlyn,
He's up
unfortunately.
70 farm. You'll be like, Cupcake, what's going on? This guy's up so much
I
farm.
mean, you'll see. I think a lot of that is my my managing of the waves, and um, I mean, she's up farm, but I can tell that she's just not a competent player. And this is not a decision that I want people to just kind of make lightly. I think that could be a little bit dangerous, right? Oh, my ADC sucks. I'm
Yeah.
just going to perma roam. It just comes with I just want to win the game, right? And I don't think that the best chance of winning this game is going to be investing too many resources into the Caitlyn, even though on paper I would want my Caitlyn to get accelerated against the Vlad. I can tell the Vlad is a better player.
I guess that's something that comes with experience, right? Like, is that something you tell your students? It's like figure out whether your AD carry is actually a win condition?
No, I tell my students to figure out how to win a game, no matter what. Sometimes it's going to be different, right? And sometimes you can tell if someone's good on your team or bad on your team, or good on the enemy team, bad on the enemy team. I don't want people to just get too rigid in their philosophy. I want people to be competitors and to figure out and to solve problems in the moment. And whatever that looks like, then, sometimes, a lot of the times for me, that's actually leaving my ADC. I think that's a bit of a problem with MMR and high-elo and OS, but we don't really have to go down that route. But yeah, it's not something that I explicitly tell my students to do.
All right, let's look at this fight here, because you say Rakan's a lot about fighting. So, anything to note here? So, are you trying to sort of bait them, walking up here?
Yeah, I mean, I see my LeBlanc moving down. I know that they want to crash into base, and so I'm just going to try to set up my LeBlanc. And then we can see that combo that I'm talking about, right? Charm two people, bring them together, find the two-man W, and then the rest is up to my LeBlanc executing. And this was going to work because they showed intent to crash the wave into tower. They want to. They showed that body language, and then it's just about picking the right moment when my LeBlanc is ready to follow up.
So that's a really good point there, that a lot of people I see stuff up, and I play a lot of Rakan players. I see a lot of Rakan players in reviews, is that they go too early, right? The follow up, the ready to follow up is a massive aspect that people, look at the map. Because people would go now, right? They would just be going now. But look how far away the bunk is, right? Look at this. You're sort of like a little bit patient, and look at that. Even that little milliseconds of you not R in there, I feel like is really important that a lot of players wouldn't do here, Cupcake. Am I wrong?
Yeah, no, you're right. And sometimes you just don't engage because they're not out of position, because no one can follow up. I was on a bit of a timer here because my minion wave is dying and I don't want them to kill the wave and run away. And so I tried to find a time where my LeBlanc can follow up in a reasonable amount of time, and they're still going to be up in the lane to kill minions. But yeah, sometimes, let's say my LeBlanc is still halfway through the rotor, then this is just not a play. I'll just back ping her, they will get out. It happens. So that's something that's very important for engaged players in general, to be able to ask yourself, is the enemy out of position or not?
Tell me about this ward. Is this a good ward?
Yep.
What's why is this ward better than control wards?
Yeah. I do not like warding in predictable locations. That ward is going to get pinked or swept, and this ward is also going to give very valuable information if the support is going to run towards mid, or if the jungle is going to look to move through this corridor. This corridor actually gets quite a lot of activity, and you're just going to notice throughout the game, hopefully, that I place my wards in intelligent places so that it doesn't just get immediately one shot. This is going to be another one of those wards. So this ward, the ward that I placed there, not only is it out of range of a pink on the edge of the bush, but it also spots the camp.
So the control ward won't see this ward?
It won't see that ward. Yeah, it's a very specific spot that I'm placing it on.
Is there like a little reference point? Is like the second tree? So you
It's the big red dot. So if you maybe you just go back a few seconds. Oh,
the big red dot. Ah,
yeah.
You're talking about this big red dot.
Yeah.
Okay,
that's
interesting. Very interesting. Wow,
Nathan's
these are really
the
obnoxious wards. Wards, Cupcake. I'm learning, dude. I know playing around against you now to where you ward. Interesting. Do people know about this stuff? Is this for common knowledge, or am I just way behind the times on support?
Honestly, the ward metagame is very slow. People don't think about these things. It kind of frustrates me. So no, you'll still get a lot of value knowing these things. People don't know the hot spots for wards. I think we should talk about this little window here. So
Sure.
I'm hanging around mid, but I'm not showing unless there's something to achieve. Now you can see that I'm pinging that I want my LeBlanc to shove, because what I want to have happen is LeBlanc shoves mid and I get to move towards the top side of the map without showing. Right? It's
Unseen.
very important
Okay, because then you can walk
no
there. I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And so I'm shove pinging. I'm not showing unless there's something to achieve. I'm still not showing. I'm trying to just get around. And then you never know how incredibly important that is. Maybe if a fight erupts, suddenly a Rakan pops up. They had no idea I was there. We are part of a game-changing fight.
Yeah, so I like your terminology, Cupcake. You say that showing's expensive. It's like it's a tax to show. But a lot of people don't realize how showing, because it's hard to see in the review, right? You don't really know how showing is actually impacting, allowing the enemy, giving them information and how easy you are to play against. I actually, this is a really big struggle that I have coaching junglers as well, is that emphasizing the importance of understanding that they're showing on the map, they're doing bad ganks or whatever it is. It's making the game very easy for their counterparts.
Yeah, it's just not obvious, right? It's obvious if you take a bad trade because you're dead or you have no health. It's not obvious if you showed because, you can't really see the missed opportunity or what would have happened if you didn't show it very easily.
So, nothing sort of happens here. You lose the grubs. Are you fine with
that?
Yeah.
So this whole window, I'm aware that Nocturne has no ult and he probably just wants to put camps on cooldown and go to his 6. On the other hand, I'm stressed to find a win con because I do not trust this Caitlyn. It's not an emotional decision. It's a decision that I want to win this game. And I'm trying to create win conditions elsewhere. And even though my Nocturne, it's not his turn, we have the number advantage. And I feel like we could have just shoved mid and fought on grubs with 4 versus 3 and maybe found something.
Yeah, but again, given aware that, like, okay, I don't need Nocturne ult to maybe win this fight.
Yeah, I'm happy with number advantages. Now, maybe this Nocturne is not, and that's fine. I don't feel comfortable just kind of hanging around bot and sieging anymore, especially with Vlad. Post level 6, he's going to have a little bit more threat. So we can make an argument that I should have just kind of stayed bot and tried to keep shoving. I value getting fog around middle and being able to shove, and maybe something erupts around here, and maybe I'm part of because I really want a win condition at the end of the day. But
okay,
yeah, nothing happens.
So a lot of people here, Cupcake, would say I do this in my games, and LeBlanc will now AFK and ping me. What's going on here? Is this more of like a high-elo specific? Why? What are you doing here? Are you trying to?
I'll do this in low-elo. And in low-elo, I'll get pinged, and I'll instantly mute my mid and carry on with my life. They won't AFK. Okay. They'll just be pissed off at you and stand on the spot for 2 seconds. They'll get over it. But
so what's the purpose of that? What's the benefit of doing that?
Well, first, I'm sitting on 3 support stacks, so I don't want absolutely 0 gold or XP. And another thing is like just creating this fog, just shoving this wave so that Azir is forced under tower. It's going to just benefit the health of the map. Maybe LeBlanc can take a reset uninterrupted now. Maybe she can find a roam timer. Azir is kind of locked, and it just puts a bit of pressure on them. And it's just one wave, so it's not like I'm constantly laning and draining my mid laner's resources. It's just something you can do once you're moving in and out of mid. Okay. So, yeah, there's a couple ways that I could have approached this skirmish. The way that I decided to approach it is I want to trade my W for Vlad's W, because that's his only defensive tool, right? And I know he still doesn't have flash. So I'm going to say, hey, LeBlanc, this Vlad is no flash, no W, go clean up. What I could have done is maybe shoe on the other foot, right? Maybe LeBlanc forces his defensive cooldown, then I land my W, but I kind of want my LeBlanc to have all of his spells to land, to kill. So that's my idea here.
Yep. So you intentionally know I'm never going to hit the W on Vlad. It's just to burn his W. So allow my LeBlanc to finish off. Yeah.
And I don't think she executed it that well. It is what it is. And then I definitely shouldn't have ulted on the back end because my LeBlanc just had no cooldowns and my W was too far away. So that's a bad ult for me, definitely. And just sloppy Ws, unfortunately for me here. This was an appropriately ranged W, right? We're looking for the short to mid-range Ws. I was just misplacing it.
So this should have been noting that hit.
Yeah, definitely should have. So when you are against, when you do have a short to mid-range W, you just want to be a little bit on the nose with your placement. You don't want to lead and predict. you want to just cast it directly on them and trust that that shorter range is going to mean that it lands.
So you're overcomplicating this. You think he's going to walk that direction?
Yeah.
You should literally just put it right there because you're going to hit it anyway.
Yeah, that's what I see a lot. I'm not predicting here. I think I just misplaced it, to be honest. And just didn't aim it well. And Vlad does have Swifty, so I'm gonna, there's a lower margin for error anyway. Okay. So yeah, quite an explosive fight. And one thing you need to do on Rakan is to embrace the chaos and the volatility. You thrive in these situations. You can't hope for like a nice, neat and tidy game. You need to be able to just perform in these moments. And what you would have noticed there is just kind of how I'm using my basic spells, right? Like my first E is getting on top of a teammate to find an easy W. My second E is to get out of there. So here I'm not putting my E on cooldown for no reason. And then once the fight erupts in front of me, you can see I'm kind of moving backwards so my teammates are in front of me for my E. Now I'm also trying to dodge the Janaki, but I'm jumping onto a teammate, deciding where I want to invest my W, find it on the Kazakhs, and then just E out afterwards. And then whatever happens, happens. A lot of the times I see Rakan, mismanage their E, and then they're messed up and die.
Very good discipline. I would see someone like, oh, the Nocturne's fighting. I got to go on the E there. Like, really good discipline on that E, which allowed you to come and follow up. And literally the whole fight would have been different. So discipline and patience on your E seems like a really big aspect of Rakan.
Definitely. You're only going to get one rotation of your E's in a fight, right? Like it's a pretty long cooldown. So you got to make the most of those 2 E presses. You got to make the most of your W.
So just a little small thing. Do you like walking like closer to mid out of base? Do you have more map impact, or why do you not go through lane? Because you got to go to bot lane because you're playing the bot lane.
Yeah, I mean, as the game goes on, I'm going to spend less and less time around bot very quickly. You become a second jungler basically after 8 minutes. So your rule of thumb should be just pass through base gate post 8 minutes and then keep your options open. And then if something happens, you can move towards mid or bot. Okay.
This is a really good example as a secondary engage, I think, Cupcake.
Yep. There's going to be a lot to talk about for this one.
All right. So where do you want to start here?
Yeah. So just go back a little bit more because I know that the Kazakhs is on this. Okay. Even maybe just back one more time and then pause. So I saw that the Pantheon was pathing into our jungle, and what I'm typing and pinging to my Caitlyn is be careful of Pantheon in this bush. You see that? I know he's going to be standing there because that's the only reason that he would walk into there. And I'm pinging Caitlyn to hug the side of the lane so that she doesn't get caught by the Pantheon. Not in that bush. I don't know why she's scared of that, but I'm saying, be careful. Don't face check there. So I'm really trying to micromanage. Otherwise, I know that they think that they can probably get a catch there, and maybe we can clean up and find some picks of our own. And
you literally just saved the Caitlyn, by the way. You literally just saved the Caitlyn there. Okay, like literally, dude. That's crazy. Because AD is just autopilot to lane. They don't think about that. They're just like, oh, I'm just gonna walk here with the minion wave, and then they're just dead, right?
Yeah. And this is an opportunity to fight. You want to fight. You need to fight on Rakan. That's how you're going to make progress. And if I can catch someone off guard before they're all organized and Jarnik and Peel, then we're going to pounce on it decisively, and that's what we're going to see.
What about fighting without ults? Is your champion, do you really not want to fight without ults, or you don't really care? It's not that important. You're like a really ult.
It's not that important. It's like, it's nice to have it up. It's going to help, but you can absolutely find skirmishes without your ult. Okay. Land my first W. My exit path is going to be towards my teammate over here. I use E1, and then just that kind of forward step. Sometimes you bait cooldowns. Sometimes you make people freak out, and then I'm ending up behind. Otherwise, maybe we just go back one more time because this ult into W is a pretty stock standard engage on Rakan. If you can find a multi-man charm into ult, that's going to be a pretty good... charm into knockup. That's going to be a pretty good use of your ult. And it's also like, I'm not freaking out about dying, right? I have resources I want to use. I want to fight. I want to kill people. And here's an opportunity. I pounce find as many charms as I can, and then I've used my E, so now I'm just going to try and dodge Pantheon Q. And that was risky. That was cocky. I had no option. I had no E, so let's just try dodge some skill shots. And if it works, it works.
Yep, so you're trying to hit as many people with your R as possible because you can only charm them once. You can charm each champion once.
Yep. So 2-man charm into W and then 1-man charm on the back end, and then kind of disengage, wait for cooldowns, and see how it goes.
So you're probably looking to base, I assume, soon. Do you look to place all your wards down before you base?
No, I couldn't care less about getting wards down like that. Just go home. I'm not going to just fill up my jungle randomly with a bunch of wards. Maybe I can just place one in the river or something, but I'm more, I care more about just pressuring at the same time as my team and especially as my jungler.
So why do we get stuck here, overstay on the map? Is this an overstay in your eyes? Like, what are we doing? Why are we not syncing our recalls with our team?
The first thing is, I know Vlad might look to all in my LeBlanc, so then if something happens, I'm going to be part of that. You don't want to just leave your teammates stranded. Support has the most freedom, right? You're not tied to minions or camps, so if there's activity, you're there. Same thing here, right? Maybe I can help my Caitlyn survive or pick up a kill on the back end. If not, that's fine. I'm not going to be able to do anything on the map if I base there anyway, because I'd be by myself. And my laners aren't ready, my jungle isn't ready, so be bloodthirsty, go seek out the action, and then look to pressure at the same time as your teammates.
Right, so again, out of base, you sort of like walk mid, again, not just autopilot and walk down towards bot. You're looking to get on the map again, viewing yourself as a second jungler.
Yep, so now there's not going to be too much to get done. My Nocturne is just going to go to his camps. Maybe I can find a cheeky chunk here, do some damage, force some cooldowns. No harm, no foul. I'm a little bit worried about my Caitlyn shoving up here. This is an awful decision from her. I'm going to go try to save her. I should micromanage her more on this window. She's just way too far up with no tower. So I think Caitlyn should go mid, Akali should go bot. Maybe I just wasn't on my game with micromanaging lane assignments here.
So that's a big part that you think about, taking responsibility. You take a lot of responsibility in your games. Like, you're literally saying that Caitlyn dying there is your fault.
Yeah, it's in my control to impact that outcome, right? And I didn't, so that's my fault. I want to have as little expectations as possible so that I take as much responsibility as possible, and then I also don't get as frustrated. So in terms of how the game is panning out, as we can see, the Caitlyn is in a really rough spot. Sure, she's up CS. It doesn't matter. Caitlyn needs to win lane. Vlad has 6 kills. He has all of the played spot. And Caitlyn's just going to be completely useless. So I'm trying to find win cons. I'm going to pounce on skirmish opportunities. I'm going to try to link up with my, scary, volatile topside, right? Akali, Nocturne, LeBlanc, they're all short range. They can all give me an E to start fighting. They all have a bunch of damage. So that's going to be where my attention is invested into. Okay. So yeah, the tricky part is when you are with a jungler that is quite tied to their ultimate, it doesn't feel the best for Rakan. If you have like an immobile jungler or a jungler that really needs their ulti cooldown, like you want a lot of volatility the whole time. You want a lot of options. You want a fast, messy pace of game. And we're able to achieve that with a lot of our team here, but not quite with our Nocturne as much. But it's not the end of the world. If he's playing his game, when he's ready, I'll be ready as well.
So you think about your teammates' ults like a lot? Or is that sort of...
I think about champions' identities, right?
Yeah.
If I have a Fiddlesticks, that's the only thing I'm thinking about. If I have a Nocturne, that's a pretty big deal. If I have a Zinzao, I don't care, right? So, I mean, that just comes with experience and champion knowledge, but it is important for Nocturne.
So, you talk a lot about you wanted to create a win condition. Are you viewing yourself as you have a win condition at this point, or you're still, you don't really feel like there's many strong members on your team?
No, it's looking rough, isn't it? My
Yeah.
Nocturnes died way too much. My mid tower is down with very low CS. Top is okay, but the way that we're going to win this game is just by finding fights and just kind of brute forcing, hoping for execution, because we just have no natural win conditions here. It's 3 losing lanes, right? 3 towers down, getting shoved in. So we're going to need to be creative, decisive, and find opportunities, and then just hope that we out execute. And a lot of winning games on Rakan is just fight execution. And there's like 400 different things that are happening here, trying to get value out of my abilities, trying to dodge skills, trying to, stay in the fights, who I'm prioritizing to peel, when to jump and when to not. And it's very hard, right, to optimize not only mastering Rakan, but just fighting in general. Like no one masters fighting. It's so fluid and dynamic. There's so much to think about, but this is just how you win games on Rakan. You fight as well as you can.
Is that what you enjoy about Rakan? Sort of got like an infinite skill cap, I guess, when it comes to fighting and skirmishing.
Yeah, I mean he's very fun. He's so fluid when you're good at him. You feel so fluid and decisive. You can jump in and out. He has a very high skill cap as well by getting the most out of his spells, and it's fun to fight. Like sometimes you just want to just get stuck in there and just fight with the boys and see what happens. And he's a great champion for that. All this mess is exactly what I want. Here, I'm not investing my ults because not needed, right? On the back end, I think Azir might be out of position here, and I think I misassessed because my Nocturne has nothing and my Akali wasn't on the same page. But I think the Azir has. I think I saw him maybe he doesn't have the mobility, and I really wanted to kind of catch him out. But this is just. I'm not going to play perfectly. The league is hard. I thought he was out of position. I made a snap second decision. My teammates weren't looking to engage and follow up, and shit happens. It was a bad engage for me.
Yeah, I guess this is again where you need to be really reviewing your R's. Like if you're R'ing someone and they're like not dying, you always ask the question, okay, was that even a good R? What did I miss?
Yeah.
Why was my team not able to follow up on my CC? Because you provide the CC as Rakan. That's what your job is, right? Your teammates provide the damage.
And this is the most classic mistake on an engager. They see a target, they engage, but no one is ready to follow up, and then it's a useless engage. So I should have been more aware of my teammates' cooldowns and whereabouts there. You can see aggressive body language. I'm always kind of like posturing forwards, looking for more. You see a lot of defensive posturing on Rakan VODs from my students. If there's an angle to kind of pounce on one side like this, like just go be a psycho, go get stuck in there and find a target, right? If you're just constantly backstepping and trying to peel with Q and E and never pouncing decisively on something, your champion's just going to get outperformed by a lot of different champions.
I also see like there's not much downside to posturing aggressively because you have the E, you have the W. You always have oh shit buttons. Like obviously you don't want to waste them, but I think it sounds like a lot of what you're saying is like for people to limit tests, like be aggressive, be a bit of a psycho. That's the only way you're going to learn the Rakan. If you're playing too safe and scared and just sitting there trying to peel, you're just not going to learn anything with this champion.
Yeah, no, great point. He has that mobility, he has that independence, so he can just kind of poke and prod and annoy and see if he can get something going like this, right? I'm kind of wasting a bit of Pantheon's time, and I like the mess, I like the chaos. Who knows what it can lead to?
Yeah, those are the most annoying Rakans that I play against. They're constantly like saying, "Hey, come get me," and then you may chunk them a little bit, but then they like bait you, bait your entire team. You guys miss position, and then those are the most annoying Rakans to play against.
Yeah.
They're just baiting you constantly because it's annoying. Like someone in your face, like especially as squishy as Rakan, right? As you said, it's like, dude, like I'm gonna kill you, like, but you don't die, So it's really obnoxious champion when you play it that way.
Yeah. Yeah, and you need to look for that, and you need to thrive in that mess and that chaos.
So yeah, this is like a 40 kill game. So Rakan likes a 40 kill game. Yeah, again, this is what you like.
Yeah, you like always having angles and fights to join and people to jump on, especially against range matchups. You get outscaled by enchanters, so you want mess, you want chaos. Might be a little bit of a different approach if we're looking against a Leona or a Nautilus VOD, but here we go. Okay, so this fight here, I thought Vlad might have been out of position. Maybe I overestimated the Nocturne's damage. I want to make sure my W lands, so I'm ulting forwards and then I'm holding my W, and then I can land that. We also don't have anyone here. My Nocturne doesn't have ult, so I'm probably not using my Nocturne as well as I can, and I should be more disciplined around what I say yes to. Maybe if I chain CC before he gets his W off, then we can one-shot, and there's a big difference between finding that kill 5 seconds earlier versus him running away with his W and people following up. So look, you're not going to find perfect fights the whole time. I try to assess as quickly as possible and exit, and there's the annoyance, right? I can kind of jump over walls and just not go down with the sinking ship. And maybe
I will mention here quickly in terms of damage, right? Like, look at Nocturne's build, by the way. He doesn't actually have any damage. He's building like a lot of defenses, right? So if you're going to kill someone, it's going to take a long time. And the longer you try, the longer it takes to kill someone, the more things can go wrong because everyone's going to collapse on you, especially with this map state, right? So it definitely makes sense here why you just couldn't kill the Vlad fast enough with these Nocturne items.
Fair enough. And I don't pay attention to my jungle's items enough. So that's a good point. I will say that maybe it looks really bad, or maybe if you guys were in this position, you would feel really bad about this, but just get over like awkward fights. Like there's just going to be so many fights, and some are going to work, some aren't. Just move on and just keep fighting and getting stuck in it and seeing what happens. You're never going to have a perfect game, especially with a fighting champion like Rakan. Okay, so here, I mean, I was just trying to get out, and then my ADC, I thought that I needed to protect them and make sure that they get out safely, and then I kind of did go down with the sinking ship because I used all of my mobility. So, is what it is.
So maybe someone comes here, Cupcake, and said, I've played so well like before this point. I'm 1-0-11. How do I win the game at this point? Is there an answer at this point? What would you tell if someone says, like, how do I win the game?
Yeah, just keep fighting well. Not every game is winnable, right? I do think that I'm performing relatively well in a game state like this where I have very few natural sources of pressure. I think I'm making some good snap decisions to find people out of position. I think I'm playing on my limits relatively well. And then if that leads to a win, cool. If it doesn't, cool. I'm just doing everything in my power to try to win. And sometimes you're going to fight your ass off and you're going to lose. And then you move on. But yeah, nothing has changed. The way that we're going to win this game is just fighting well and trying to be creative and looking for an angle to fight. And what I wanted to look for here is to try and find a pick on top side, because I know that the enemy is going to invest resources on bot side here, and then maybe we can find a cheeky kill on the side. My Nocturne wanted to put his bot camps on cooldown. I think he's maybe a little bit rigid with that, but who cares? I probably should have recognized that he is not going to be moving top with me, and we're not going to find a top pick. And then I should have been here a little bit faster. But yeah, I'm looking for creative picks for number advantage fights, for angles to get things going.
Warding at this stage then. When you're behind, how do you think about warding, Cupcake? Vision.
So I mean, typically if you're behind, you want to sack one side of the map and play for the other, and then you're going to be using your vision resources aggressively on strong side, and you're just rejecting weak side. Now in this game, I just kind of want to keep fighting, and then my wards are going to be more just in the moment battle
bushes
wards.
For vision, battle wards.
Yeah, still trying to be unpredictable, still trying to spot out champions if they're in our jungle, but honestly, like the game is won in this game by fighting well, and it's not going to be about warding topside or anything. So yeah, in general, if you're behind, take one side of the map, reject the other, and then go from there. Unfortunately, this game is looking pretty rough. There's a lot of poor skirmishes going on. We're starting to run out of sources of pressure or win cons. And at this stage, like, we're just basically out of options, right? We'll just, maybe the enemy ends up throwing, maybe they end up overstaying. But Rakan is also good at collapsing on his side. He's got quite a lot of mobility in his kit, and if you can just kind of jump towards an ally and find an engage on the side lane, then you can do that. And when you are behind, you're more ready to reject mid lane and concede mid shove and then look for something else elsewhere. And that's kind of what I was looking for on top on that window. Decisively pounce and then just skirmish execution, right? Don't hesitate. If I hesitated there, Azir wouldn't die. If I mis-executed and W'd straight into his ult, Azir wouldn't die. Quite a lot going on here pretty quickly, of course. But also skirmish assessment, right? The Azir was out of position, but then the rest of his super fed team is collapsing and it's time to leave. Not trying to have your cake and eat it too. Get the kill, get the hell out of here. And then I think
Pantheon ult came through, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, they have numbers in the area. They're much stronger. This Caitlyn is doing absolutely nothing. Nocturne doesn't have ult. So we found a pick, and then maybe we can get out on the back end. Maybe we can't. We gave it our best shot, and that was a successful result, right? 2 of us died, 3 of them died.
Yeah, absolutely worth.
Very successful. And if I'm just kind of sitting under mid tower, something like that's not going to happen. So I'm being creative. I'm being opportunistic. I'm pouncing with no hesitation.
Will you ever, let's say you did build a Kindle Gem, you prioritize your Kindle Gem over Control Wards. Would you buy a Ruby Crystal over Control Wards?
Most of the time, yeah. I think Control Wards are a bit overrated, and especially in fast-paced games like this. This is just about can you get to the action and keep fighting.
And have HP and survive.
Yeah. Yeah. We can tell that we're not like controlling an area and playing like a game of chess. Yeah. This is just like... yeah. Slamming face into each other. Yep.
Okay, so sort of what's your role in these fights? What's your mindset with R? Are we in pill mode? I mean, are we looking to go in with Nocturne? We're looking to assassinate. I mean, who do you even kill this game?
Yeah. So my idea this game in general is not to peel. I don't want to peel for a Caitlyn and a LeBlanc. If I had more hyperscaling carries, then I could play more peel. They also have quite a bit of range, right? They have Azir, they have Vlad, they have Janna. So I want to put pressure on those range champions and kill them. And so what I would want to do is to be a secondary engager, like we were talking about, right? My Nocturne or my LeBlanc or my Akali jumps forwards first, and then I follow up with my ERW, and then we kind of go from there. In another game state, maybe they have a lot of engage. Maybe I have hyper scaling and mobile carries, and then I'll play more to peel. The 2 identities there.
All right, so you guys surrender here. So, what do you think the key takeaways are for this VOD for our Rakan viewers? What do you think you did well? What do you think this VOD really exemplifies?
Yeah, so whenever there was action, I was there. That's not a coincidence, right? I'm pressuring with my jungler. A lot of the times, I'm saying yes to action. I'm moving there. I'm being bloodthirsty, and then the execution in the fights was, pretty reasonable, and that goes a long way. If you want to win games on Rakan, you've got to know how to use your spells. You've got to assess fights. You've got to have no hesitation. You've got to pounce on those opportunities before they disappear. Otherwise, the surprise factor and the mobility in your kit kind of goes to waste. In terms of like the early game, honestly, Rakan is an exception. I actually don't really care that much about wave management or early game as Rakan. Just get to level 3 in one piece and then get to those mid-game fights and then execute. So yeah, as long as you understand how you're winning games on Rakan, and as long as you understand what the learning process looks like, it takes a long time to master him and be fluid on him, which you have to do. It Takes a very long time to build up the competence to skirmish well, but it's fun, right? You don't have to perfect it. You just got to do it better than your last attempt or better than your opponents. And yeah, it's just really fun to get involved in all of the mess and the chaos and start brawling.
Great. Okay, let's jump into our tier list section now. Okay, Cupcake, we're going to start with ADC synergies. What AD carries do you like to see picked with Rakan? I guess the most obvious one is Xayah Rakan. Is Xayah instantly in S tier?
No.
No.
That's
okay.
a bait. Yeah.
That's a bait.
Yeah, once upon a time, they were scary, but Xayah is just very hard to pick as an ADC, right? Because you need to be up against engage. So I don't care about Xayah.
Where would you put her?
I mean, like they do have some synergies, right? Like they get the empowered recall and they help each other with their spells a little bit. But if it's a good Xayah game, then I'm happy. If it's not a good Xayah game, then whatever. So maybe around like B, I guess.
Yeah. So this is very more situational about whether this is a good game for Xayah. It's not really about you. It's about if it's a good Xayah game or not.
Yeah.
Xayah's good at low range people running into her, right?
Yeah. And if you're against high range and poke, you're screwed. It doesn't matter if you have some
worst champ in the game
synergies in your kit. Yeah.
So, all right, now let's go to the list from left to right here. So
yeah. Well, maybe we can talk about like what Rakan enjoys and what he doesn't enjoy. So Rakan, his identity is just to kind of scale through the lane, and then he's gonna be able to skirmish pretty well, right? So ADCs that kind of match that are weaker early and then they start to fight really well are gonna feel good. Champions like Twitch, maybe Zeri, and just anything that kind of fits in there that they don't really need to. Yep, Jinx is fine. Yep, they don't really need to snowball early. Yep. So like the immobile hyper carries. Yeah, we can. I would maybe put like a Phelios and Jinx in A. I think that like the Twitch and the Zeri, they're really weak early and they just really enjoy fighting with Rakan and his ult. You can imagine Twitch opening up and then Rakan jumping in and then back to Twitch. Same with Zeri. So yeah, I would say those are the best. And then like immobile hyper carries are pretty solid as well. I will say that maybe we can think about the D tier now. Like what Rakan really doesn't like seeing is champions that need to snowball and need a lot of lane presence. The tricky thing is like Rakan is a bit of a jack of all trades, master of none. So like if you have a Tristana or a Samira or a Kalista, they really want kill threat, right? And Rakan just doesn't really provide that early on, but it's not like the end of the world. So there's not going to be like an F tier. But I don't want to see ADCs that needs to stomp lane.
So you hate Draven, like Misfortune, Caitlyn.
Definitely
These
Caitlyn.
Are the champions sort of someone. Yep.
Kalista. Yeah, like Kalista, Tristana, Samira, they need to find kills, and Rakan is not the best at facilitating that. He's not the worst, he's not the best.
Samira's not even on here, so Samira would go here. What about mages? Where do mages fit in? They're sort of looking to scale, right?
Yeah, mages are solid, absolutely. Yep.
A tier, B tier? Like where would a Karthus go?
Yeah, I would say around bottom of A, top of B. Both are totally fine. Mages are going to scale around a similar pace with Rakan, and then they typically have some pretty good ults to fight with, and Rakan, yeah, is going to enjoy them. I will say that like all of this is not like extreme, right? Like the ADC matchup or the ADC pairing for Rakan is not the most important part of picking Rakan.
Because you're playing the map. That's the idea, right?
Yeah, you're getting through lane and then you're fighting. And some ADCs you can't afford to leave, like that Caitlyn maybe that we just saw. But most of the time it's fine, and you're going to be in a decent spot.
I want to just talk about these ones here, like very classic ADCs. Ashe, where does Ashe go?
Yeah, C or D, because she wants to win lane, and Rakan's not the best at facilitating that.
Yeah. I see Ezreal Khan a lot. Ezreal Khan seems a bit terrifying. Where would you go?
Yeah, it's hard to punish. Ezreal is good at just 1v2ing while Rakan roams. So that's why they're pretty solid. So I'd probably put him in A.
A? Okay.
And Same with like a lot of mages. As the game gets on, they're able to wave clear 1v2 and let Rakan run around and kill people. So that's why he does appreciate mages as well.
Would Smolder be AS? Because
Not
scaling?
not S. I would say A is reasonable.
Jin feels like it's not. It's like sort of anti-synergy, maybe,
Yeah.
or
Uh, yeah.
CB.
Bottom of B, top of C, maybe top of C.
Okay, yeah, that feels
Yeah.
awkward. Kai'Sa goes in with you.
Kai'Sa appreciates more threat, so probably B tier. Remember, like we're a jack of all trades, master of none. So like we can
I
set her up,
see.
but not nearly as well as other engagers.
That's why Kai'Sa likes like the Nautilus. Kai'Sa Nautilus, like a really
Yep.
famous one, because that's Kai'Sa. Like Nautilus is very good. He's a master at engager, right? So
Yeah.
as you're sort of saying, the jack of all trades for
Yep.
and Varus, I guess, is the last one that I sort of want to. Where would Varus go?
Yeah, probably around the Jin
It's
Ash
like Jin.
mark as well.
Yeah, Jin Ash.
Yeah, these utility ADCs are pretty similar.
Senna's picked up a lot of popularity recently. Have you played with many Sennas?
I've not too much in solo queue actually, but she scales. You're going to be hard to kind of break through. I think Senna prefers more frontline than Rakan offers, to be honest. So I would probably put like bottom of B for Senna.
Yeah.
She's not the best at 1v2ing either. She's pretty susceptible to just getting dove. Doesn't have the safest range wave clear, but similar kind of power trajectory.
And a lot of the majors like Wales or whatever, they would just be going in like top of B
Yeah,
tier,
they're
A
all
tier.
top of B, bottom of A. Yeah.
Yeah. Is Seraphine even an ADC anymore? Do you see that?
Don't see Seraphine much, but yeah.
It would be like that. Okay. Okay, let's now jump over to support matchups that I guess we'll say S tier is like super easy for you, and like D, it's like, okay, that's a nightmare.
Yeah, so the absolute best support matchup is Pyke, actually. I use Rakan as a Pyke counterpick because the power trajectory is just so different, right? Like Pyke needs to snowball. Rakan excels at minimizing and getting through lane. Pyke's spells don't hard lock you down. You can use your mobility to get in and out of his Q and his E quite easily. So Pyke is absolutely our best matchup. We don't die and we outscale really hard. Otherwise, it's just melee supports we're gonna enjoy. So Braum would be top of A because Braum excels at using his passive to disrupt melees, but Rakan can jump in and out. And so we're going to be more fluid in skirmishes, and we're going to be able to get through lane really easily as well. And then it's just engagers. We're happy. They're going to be in A. We can
so all the ages like
disengage.
Leona, Nautilus,
Rel,
Alistar, Rel. Where would a Blitzcrank, like Hook Champs, like Thresh and Blitzcrank go?
Yeah, that would probably be Blitzcrank probably top of B. Thresh. Actually, we'll put Thresh in A, and then B for Blitzcrank. Blitzcrank is sometimes used as a Rakan counter because if his hook hits someone, then someone's going to get one shot, and you can't really jump in and out and disengage as much.
What about a champ like Taric? Taric sometimes we see, especially in the lower ranks.
Taric can be bottom of B. The thing about Taric is he scales very well as well. So while you're not hard committing, you can jump in and out. Like Taric's presence in skirmishes is going to be pretty scary as well. And you are melee range at the end of the day. So Taric's whatever matchup. Not great, not horrible.
Let's talk about enchanters now. Where do enchanters fit?
Yeah. So enchanters we don't enjoy because they outscale, and the disengage enchanters are going to be the worst. So these enchanters that don't have a great disengage are going to be probably C tier. So Sona, Soraka C tier, Nami C tier. Sona will go up to C. Yep, and then Lulu I put in C as well. She needs her ult to be able to disengage. Karma in C tier, yep. And then otherwise, like ranged champions that also can disrupt your W, like you're just really hating your life. So Janna would be.
It's got to be Janna, right? So Janna, Morgana. Morgana's not really popular of a pick. luckily.
That is true, but yep, she would be annoying. Milio, Renata.
Lux.
Yep, Lux. Yep, Lux, Zyra,
Milio.
Renata,
Renata.
Zyra. Doesn't look like
Zyra.
she's here, but
Oh,
oh,
yeah,
there
yeah,
she is.
Yep.
Yep. So basically, range champions that can disrupt your W, you're in for a rough time.
Makes sense. Okay, now we talk a lot about how Rakan's more of like a big picture sort of team. You know, you're not too reliant on your ADC. You know, you're probably not going to be versing the support much. You know, it's just a lane phase, right? That we sort of just went over.
Yeah.
What do you like to see on your team? What are S tier overall general champions?
Yeah. So just mobile frontliners that want to fight, right? That's a very broad category, but it could be bruisers, you know, like Zin, Jarvan, about 20 different ones. Riven.
Is that like the Aurelias, Rivens, like a lot of the
Yep.
top laners, right?
Yep. Junglers and top laners. You know, Lee Sin, whatever. Belveth, like anything that's melee and goes forwards and fights. We're happy.
What don't you like to see?
Immobility and low uptime. Like Lilia, like Fiddlesticks, like Ivern.
Nocturne? Nocturne? Where would Nocturne go? Nocturne's sort of like immobile
like
and
B.
he has a better B
Yeah,
tier.
like B or C, honestly, because he doesn't have enough uptime. He's just playing around his ult a bit much.
And like the immobile top laners, like what about tank top laners like Alawi and Cho'Gath and all that?
Not great, not horrible.
So
yeah,
like C,
like
B.
Yeah, around there, top of C, bottom of B. Like you want someone in front of you, but you also want that someone to be able to engage so that you can follow up. And the mobile ones are going to be tough. I mean, Renekton is mobile, right? He's great.
He's great, right? So he'll be like an A tier or something like that, right?
Yep, he'll be right up with the rest of the fighters.
Malphite, like C, Fiddlesticks D. Camille would go S tier.
Yep, they're all S tier. Anyone that has high uptime and can jump forwards.
GP Garen, I'm assuming sort of like C. I mean, Garen sort of has some movement speed.
Nah, he's not the greatest.
Yeah, pretty immobile. Like again, really bad. Mundo.
Yep.
Jax.
Yep. I think we can fill out the D tier a little bit more. This is going to be mid laners as well, because remember we're leaving lane and looking for fights. And if your mid laner can't fight, if they're scaling up or if they have low threat or low mobility, we won't put the Kassadin in there. We'll just put the Kassadin out for now, I think. But we'll fill up D with immobile mages, right? Like if you see a Malzahar or Victor or just these low threat, low mobility, low action champions, then like you struggle in lane and you can't do anything in their lane, and then you can't do anything anywhere, and it sucks.
Yeah, it's like the Valkars. LeBlanc or Lissandra, these would probably be more so great, right? So A tier or even S tier?
A tier for these range setup champions, S tier for melee setup champions, like Silas, Kiana, whatever.
Yeah. So the melee champs are good because they're getting in there, so you can go for the E, I see.
Yep. Yeah, you want springboard, you want to jump off.
Would sort of be like D tier, right?
Yeah. Yep. I put Ryzen C because he does have some threat. He has some side lane action going on later, but not the greatest yet.
God, I'm struggling to find immobile mages. Also, Syndra would be like C, right?
Yeah,
like,
bottom of C.
Immobile mages?
Yeah, like they have some damage, they have some threat, but they can't really. Yeah, C as well.
Vex has some more engage. Where would Vex go? Vex is a bit of an interesting mid lane champion.
Yeah, bottom of C, maybe top of D actually.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah, again, like not high uptime and low mobility.
What about a champ like Shen? That can Shen allow you to be a primary engage, or are you still a secondary engage all the time?
Yeah, the thing is, like, Shen's ult is not permanently up, right? So sure, his ult can be useful one-off, but I'm concerned about like uptime.
You're fighting a lot. You're fighting a lot. That's right.
Can he fight a lot? And Shen can't really fight that much. Maybe B. He is a frontliner who can engage, but not the best.
So like Cassiopeia will go C, Azir, C,
Yep.
Brilliant Soul, D.
Azul is awful. Yep.
Yeah. Oh, Aurora, new champion. Aurora gets in there a little bit. Or do you think more so still C?
Yeah, maybe top of C for Aurora. Not the best uptime, pretty ulti reliant. Doesn't springboard you very nicely. Aatrox is
Aatrox.
excellent.
Aatrox gets kited a bit. He's excellent. Okay. Yeah, so we're definitely seeing a trend here. Anything else that strikes?
Put Silas in S because he's a mid laner and we don't have mid laners in S, I think.
Okay, yeah, we want some melee mid laners. What are the melee mid laners?
Yep.
Talon?
Yasuo, Yone.
Yasuo, Yone. Okay, let's find them. Zed?
Yeah, Zed is fine. It's just like some assassins don't have any CC, and so then it's harder to kind of set you up and kill people together.
So where would Zed go, you reckon?
Yeah, he'd be A, I think. Bottom of A is fine.
So Pantheon's like a top lane melee, but he doesn't actually have like has CC, but he's not really mobile. Or do you like his R?
He's pretty good. Top of A probably.
Top of A. Because Pantheon's picked up a lot of popularity. I just did an episode with Schoenfire, right, with Pantheon. He's loving Pantheon at the moment. Yeah, actually, I feel like Pantheon would be pretty good with Rakan. Makes sense. All right, I think that all makes sense.
Yeah. As long as people understand, like they don't have to memorize every champion, as long as they understand the categories, right? Like mobile, proactive fighters with high uptime, fantastic. Immobile, low action, scaling champions, awful.
Beautiful. All right, let's jump into our Emerald review now, Cupcake, talking about everything we've learned so far and applying it to a community member, League of Legends player. Okay, so this is our Emerald player here. Currently Emerald 4 with 200 games. Definitely a support main. Doesn't have Rakan in his top picks, but does play a bit of Rakan, especially recently. So we'll do a really quick OPGG review for this guy here in terms of just items, what we're looking for. What do you see here? So we're going the Celestial. Looks like every single game. Oh no, we are going.
He's taking some Solstice. What I would want to see is Solstice against range, Celestial against melee as a rule of thumb.
I see.
He's not really doing that. Maybe he's playing around a little bit with it. But I like to see Guardian. I like to see Domination secondary. I like to see Lucidities. The rune setup is okay. I don't like Unflinching over Revitalize, and flat AP over just scaling up is not the best either. It's not going to make or break, but you can, like, all of these things click in place if you understand your champion's strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah, so again, you go the ability haste and then double scaling. This guy's going for more damage. Like, it just doesn't really seem to align with his identity that much.
Yeah.
Right? This guy does go Zeke's into Locket, so he's on board.
Perfect.
He's on board with the Zeke's thing.
There you go. True Rakan connoisseur there.
Okay, and that's basically it there. All right, let's jump straight into the game here, Cupcake.
Yep. So initially, a couple things that are disastrous already. He's already leveled up W. W start is pretty awful. If there is going to be an invade, you want to hold your skill point and then level up your W and use your W if it's actually going to achieve something, but you don't want to start W in lane. You can't jump forwards. You're not going to do much. You're going to take a lot of damage on exit. And we're also against Caitlyn Pantheon, right? Like, this is a really scary lane. Pantheon has a lot of early damage. Caitlyn has a lot of poke and range. And so it's going to be about minimizing and picking your moment to actually be able to engage.
This is the thing, Cupcake, where you're saying people are just so invade. Like, I can't play Rakan, I go on to invade. You're telling people you don't need to do this to win the game. Don't create chaos. Just scale, play your channel identity, and just have a stable lane phase. Is that the idea?
You want to value lane control initially over looking for or countering invades. Just have none of this happen and just control mid bush and then get level 2 first and go from there, because if something doesn't go well here, or if they don't end up face checking you, then you're going to be at a disadvantage if you don't have control of the lane.
Yeah, and where you say
So
control the lane, you talk about, so you sprint out of base, you stand here, and you do the exact same standing that you did before. You stand here, you bam, and then you start whacking the waves to try and get level 2 first.
well, it's going to be very different this game because the matchup is completely different, right?
I
Last
see. So you're not
time
going to be able to hit
we
the
had a
wave.
Caitlyn
Okay.
against a Vlad, so our
Yep.
limits are going to be lower in this game. So here we'd start Trinket, we'd ward mid bush, we'd make sure that Pantheon doesn't start in mid bush himself, and then we can kind of go from there and try to hit the first wave.
Okay, so we're going to ward this bush and be more in a defensive mindset.
Yep.
So switching out to sweeper here, you're not a fan of this.
No, I mean, it's an aggressive decision. If he thinks he can get bush control and use it, sure. You shouldn't be able to on paper. On paper, Trinket is going to be much better because we're expecting to be on the back foot and just to minimize and scale up. But we can just maybe pause quickly here because sometimes you get a sense and feel of the games that you're in, right? And maybe you're against supports that don't know how to control or pressure from bushes, and maybe you get away with sweeper and actually controlling bushes. And if we see that, then great, we'll do that. We'll get the value out of it, but on paper, it shouldn't happen.
Oh,
okay.
He was sneaked in that bush that whole time.
How so this is something. Yeah, this won't happen, of course, if we just beeline it to lane from base. And Pantheon is a champion that likes to look for early cheeses and volatile trades because he has a lot of base damage with his empowered W with cheap shot, and I mean he probably has sudden impact instead, but with PTA as well. So in terms of like disengaging and engage, if the engage is going to extend, W is going to be better. Otherwise, we're just peppering with Qs instead of taking W so that we don't have to commit or so that we can sustain as well. Going W and then E, not a fan of that skill order. You need your Q to minimize. We don't have enough threat to jump in and jump out. And E is just going to be strictly worse than Q for minimizing. The only time you can take E level 2 is if there's going to be an explosive fight to the death, if you have a Callista and you're just scrapping it out at level 2.
So is what we're seeing here very common, what you see with your Rakan reviews, Cupcake? People sort of misinterpreting the early lane reference points?
Yep, I see confusion with Trinket and Sweeper. I see confusion with skill order, absolutely. So yeah, what I'm looking for normally with my students is just get to level 3 in one piece with reasonable health bars, and then just kind of go from there. Understand that your champion is not designed to win lane, and you're great at minimizing, and so we got to do that as well as we can. And then eventually, when our jungle's active, we can use him, or when the game progresses, the way we win is through those fights like we've been talking about. But we can clearly see here that we're sorely missing our Q, right? Look at our health bars, and we're just not finding Qs that we don't have it. We can find Qs against melee matchups like this relatively easily. So it's good for him for pressuring from the bushes, but we've got to be able to just spam Q more. It's such a powerful ability.
I mean, it just goes to show we just have the facts that E was useless. There's no engaging on the Pantheon Caitlyn here, right? They're so much more stronger than us, so, it's just useless.
Yep, agreed. Now, in a 2v2 setting, that's bad. If we're setting up for a gank, that's good, right? So pretty clear that he's probably doing this for his jungler, and it's going to work out. Now, I would probably look at the Pantheon because we know that he's more chunked and he has no flash. And on one hand, you'd rather kill the ADC. On the other hand, reality demands that we just kill who we can kill, right? And so so we probably just W the Pantheon there instead. Ends up working out because Pantheon just jumps forwards and dies. Small thing here, but maybe we can go back to when we're in Fountain. You should optimize how you're jumping. You want to use your W out of base, and if you W through the Nexus past halfway on the Nexus, you get pushed out, and then you get more distance on your W.
So you W from like here, and then you get like pushed out. Is that right?
You get pushed out, you get more range on your W. At the very least, we should be Wing out of Fountain, right? Because we're full mana, and we want to get on the map. Every split second counts.
He's going mid out of base, though. So this is good, right? Off your first base, you're a fan of this because there's nothing to do bot here.
We should be pathing through, through mid gate so we can keep our options open. The problem with this mid path is I'm already showing on the mid minions. That's
Oh,
the tricky thing
no.
here.
Yeah.
So we'll just have a look. But his mid lane is getting shoved in, and then we got spotted. So then this
Yeah.
could ruin just the entire next sequence of plays, and he wouldn't even realize it.
Yeah.
Now, it turns out, and I think this is just going to happen a lot, the result doesn't matter, it's the concept, right? And we showed Mel didn't see us, and then she just dies to us, and then it's going to work out. But make sure that you're valuing denying the enemy team information. What I will say, though, is what we're seeing a great job of is he's using his jungler, right? He's linking up with his jungler. He's getting a burst of confidence when his jungler is active. We saw that bot, we saw that mid, and it's no surprise that those situations work out. Not sure how we ended up almost dying here to Pantheon. What are we trying to do?
I think you tried to go towards bot lane first. Yeah. I mean, you saw the Pantheon, right?
Yeah.
We just get pushed away.
Yeah. Just kind of like, first of all, you're against a very strong early support. They're not showing. And we invested a lot of time around mid. So it's not out. You can't just make an active play and then just expect to run straight back to where you want, right? Like you made a play. It's now more so the enemy's turn. So on one hand, probably can't run straight through river. On the other hand, just W earlier. You get jumped on by Pantheon, you just W away. You're not going to take all of those melee Qs and orders. Maybe even over terrain, so we can't follow.
There's just no W's out of base here, Cupcake.
Yep. It's going to add up tremendously over the course of the game. Right here, this is great. Your jungle is not active. And so when he is active, then we can look to use him to either roam towards an objective or to just gank our lane. Slow pace of game, slow pace of lane is what we want. If nothing happens, we're happy. And then as the game progresses, then we're fighting a lot. But this is a type of matchup that Rakan loves. A melee support that wants to accelerate and struggles to do so against Rakan's kit.
You're putting the pressure on them. It's up to them to close out the game.
Yep.
And have a really good lane phase. So we're just in a chill position here. You're not going to force anything, whatever. You're just going to keep clearing, just farming, just waiting for sort of the mid game.
This is excellent. This is very high level play. We were minimizing appropriately.
Well played.
We pounced decisively using our flash when our jungle is around. And sometimes, or a lot of the times, this is what Rakan lanes are going to look like. You minimize 2v2. You use your jungler's proximity when he's on your side of the map to find a gank or to find a shove into base. And then you're not trying to stress out and dominate 2v2 when your champion can't do so. So a lot of pretty good signs here, actually. Except for showing without reason. So if you're going to kill Mel, first of all, I'm not a fan of hitting that plant. It kind of alerts people that someone is there. The other thing is you want to think about which path you're taking, right? Like, should we just run like through the river, or should we try to cut her off behind her so we can kill her? Is she going to be walking up at a predictable time to go for last hits, and then maybe we can time our engage there? These are all like things to think about, but I think what ends up happening is we just something. Yeah, we kind of run forwards from the middle, and then there's nothing to achieve. She's not out of position, so this is awful, right? You cannot afford to do this. Now the enemy team knows that there's a low HP Rakan who is shown in mid, and then they get a lot of freedom around the bottom side of the map or whatever. Now this is something I do see, especially in lower elos, is people don't understand how scary early dragons are, how much of an investment they are. I'm not sure if you have an opinion of this, but...
Oh, 100%. I tell my junglers, right here, I'm saying you starting dragon is delaying the tempo on Varus and Rakan. You're literally ruining the bot lane for Varus and Rakan. They just want to recall. You're forcing them to stay on this dragon.
Yeah. And again, if we're making such a risky committal decision, just like saying yes to a fight immediately afterwards, very scary, right? Like your resources are not looking good after that dragon fight. Your tempo, your health is doomed. I think it is worth looking at how we used our spells initially, because fighting on Rakan is incredibly important, right? And let's see how if we use our teammate as a springboard, land a short to mid-range W, and then jump out, or what we do. Poor min-maxing here. No reason to get hit by the dragon autos with your jungle. And here, wait for the Pantheon to W, and then I don't mind the
What do
W
you think?
cast. It's kind of like a mid-range, but we just end up missing. What we can see is where we're lacking in champion mastery is our E usage, especially the second one. See how we're moving backwards here, and then we're Eing and we're ending up.
So it should be forwards and then E. Is that what you're
Yeah.
saying?
So you jump in, then you
Okay.
jump out, and so here, like you just always want to optimize where you're ending up with your E, and you always want to give yourself the best chance possible of landing a W with a short to mid range. Yeah. So
I feel
these
like
are
what
all
we've seen here is just a lot of luck, by the way, Cupcake. Like, this is all just like Shen ults coming in, Mel randomly dying. Like, this is definitely,
yeah.
a lot of lucky things has happened. And as you said, this is where you get tricked. And it's hard to climb in league because this looks like you're working. You think you're top of the world. Oh, wow, I'm an amazing Rakan 006. But a lot of the principles and concepts that you're saying here, Cupcake, are not high percentage. It's not going to help
Yeah.
this guy in the long run.
Yep. Early lane skill order is bad. Roaming fundamentals, very bad. Really need to focus on that one. And then we'll see skirmishes as the game goes on, how we're using the spells. I don't care about the result. We're ahead. We're probably going to end up winning the fights. But if you know how to fight on Rakan versus not, there's going to be a huge difference between your success in the long run. What I have enjoyed seeing is that decisiveness and that pressuring with the jungler. Now, this whole window here, this was a bit of just autopilot back to bot. There is an argument to be made to protect our mobile ADC with no flash with a bounty against a Pantheon. There's also an argument to be made to just be a jungler, right? And link up with your pressuring teammates and be there for this crucial fight up there. Yep. And people often ask me, what do I do if my ADC gets dove? Like, first of all, you can see if they're going to get dove, right? You can, is the enemy posturing forwards with a stacked wave to dive, or are they just kind of shoving and leaving, or are they kind of moving away? If they're posturing forwards to aggressively dive and we've pathed through like base gate, then we can kind of respond and move back down. But here I'm pretty certain in saying that your ADC would have been fine to just catch XP, maybe a few last hits here while you are part of a game-winning sequence up top, and then you end up moving back down afterwards.
The wave's really small here. Varus can just queue from range and probably
Yep.
just get all these very safely, right? He's full HP.
Yep, he's probably totally fine here. You're not leaving him forever. You can just go do your thing at this crucial top fight, which people love fighting over, and then eventually you can come back down and make sure your ADC is getting a recall timer. Because we don't have much to do here. We're not designed to win this lane. On the other hand, nothing happening with the Pantheon is good for us. So what I would be interested in seeing is him versus an Enchanter, and then see how the game goes if he doesn't find these plays with his jungle and he just gets outscaled instead. So there's just a bit of a showcase of Rakan and Join being a secondary engage. I think the Pantheon just kind of got locked up by the Verisol. Pantheon's way up here by himself. Again, I love the decisiveness here, but we can ask ourselves, is the ult necessary? Or is this isolated flashless Pantheon just inting? Do we need to ult? I don't think we need to ult. I think we just W this guy.
Yeah.
Same with Ignite.
Let's
even,
see.
but, yeah.
Let's see his next couple of ults and see if he's very trigger happy with it. You know, again, maybe
Sure.
wasting the eye. And I think that's a really important question to be asking for Rakan players' reviews. Again, he's like, is ult necessary? Like, if the kill is so quick and like everyone's full HP, then it's like, is ult worth? Yeah.
It's very common for people to ignite people who are going to die or ult people who you don't need to ult. And we just saw both there.
Max range W's here, Cupcake. Varus is is maybe going in on the cannon. Maybe that's the mindset here. But this is I guess demonstrating how hard it is to hit these W's.
Yeah, like honestly, if we're shoving and leaving, there's not much of a consequence to this.
Yeah.
I don't mind just kind of looking and getting out of here. If this open up a window for Pantheon to engage, like this isn't the biggest deal. We're getting out, we're shoving, we're basing. We're kind of buying space for our ADC to find a shove into base, so I'm fine with that. So here, maybe we can go back and have a look at the E's again, like depending on how the fight goes. So we're going to, I mean, the initial E's there, that's fine. We're kind of getting out after jumping forwards. And then we're trying to find a base. And then we're going to W, we're going to land our Q. And then I think we want to end up forwards, to be honest. I don't think we want to end up side and to the back here. And so, like, there are going to be situations where you want to end up behind or in front, and you just got to assess, right? We've got to fed out of our mind ADC. The Pantheon just used all of his cooldowns, and our ADC is posturing forward, so we want to end up closer to the action, find some more orders and easier queues. On the back end, I think that's fine. We did try to follow up after all is said and done. Oof, yep. Don't autopilot bot. Look at mid, right? Look at how, like, you need to be bloodthirsty. You need to be drawn to action. I don't even pan my camera. I just see champions on the minimap and they're kind of close to each other. That's all I need. I'm investigating. I'm getting stuck in there. And so
it looks like there was autopilot. It's like you sort of like went towards bot. It's like, oh, wait, I probably should be mid here. But it's like, it's just too late. You already missed the window.
Yep. Autopiloting, Spotify playlist, swap, whatever it might be. We gotta be moving to the action there. In order to fight well, you got to be at fights, right? That's the first thing you got to do.
And another one about, you said that the timing adds up. The lack of W's out of base, again, slow. We're just slow to these plays. We couldn't be, utilizing, again, our strength of champions fighting. You're just not at the right place at the right time.
Yeah. Won't matter in this game's results, but critical in many games as Rakan. So on these windows of downtime, when his teammates aren't ready, right? Mid is pathing out of base, jungle is pathing out of base to do his camps, then this is the time to kind of be ready for when your teammates are ready, right? So what I would probably look to do here is just shove bot wave with my Varus and then recall and then meet up with my jungler. Because if you don't find these windows to shove bot, it's riskier to roam, right? Because then the enemy has a wave that they can use to stack or to dive or to do whatever. So shove that wave, and then base, and then link with your jungle, and then everyone's going to be happy, right? Your Varus isn't going to get punished. You're going to be on the map at the same time as your Udyr, and you can go get things done.
So we're roaming here on a window. This is where supports just constantly roam. They're not getting specific. They're just roaming with their teams in base, and Varus says this is not a roam window to do anything aggressive. So push wave, then we could sort of base, and then we could sort of link up with our jungle. How much gold we got? With 550 gold. You probably want to refresh our wards,
the gold doesn't matter. The gold doesn't matter.
Okay.
Pressuring with your teammates matters. And so without overcomplicating it too much, pressure at the same time as your teammates, especially your jungler. And that means that you're going to need to pay attention to them, right? And when they are active, you're there and you're meeting them.
Again, not a single W out of base.
I like how he's staying in fog initially
fog
here. He's
vision.
not just immediately showing on the bot minions. And again, like, his jungle isn't too active, so we don't want to get too feisty around mid. Like, we could be hovering bot fog here. We could be hovering mid fog here. I would probably choose to increase the health of the middle of the map. The later the game goes on, the middle of the map becomes more important than the side of the map. I would like to give my Azir more cover and more vision for him to keep dominating 1v1. But fight ends up happening. Maybe we can just have a look at the spell usage here, because it is very important on Rakan. Let's go back one more time. So we initially stay in fog, and then our go-to is, jump in, jump out. So let's see. We're fogging it up. We're going to jump onto the Pantheon, and then we're going to kind of E out. So the problem with the approach is that if we're leading, then the Pantheon has the go button after our cooldowns are down, right? So here, like, we have no W, no E, and now Pantheon can kind of do his thing and we can't disrupt. And remember, like, we want to disengage, counter-engage, react, and outscale the 2v2 setting. And so this is very scary. And this could potentially throw the game if they...
So this should just be a small win. This should just be the W, knock up, back out, small win, and then just back off. We don't press
I don't think we W in at all in the 2v2, to be honest. I think we just chill. It's quite a lot to expect your ADC to just take the small win and get the hell out with you. Yeah. Like here, like, if you see your Rakan jumping forward, you're probably trying to follow up to some degree, and then Pantheon finds an engage on you, right? So I would just do nothing 2v2. Look at the jungler, right? He's 5 seconds away. So When your jungle is ready, then you do that. Then it's going to work out. But now our ADC is low. We're missing cooldowns, and it's just going to get a lot more awkward. And it gets very awkward, right? Two of us die for no reason because we didn't pressure at the same time as our jungler, and we misassessed the matchup.
Oh, it looks like the enemy team, I think, surrender right now. Oh, we saw our first W out of base right at the end.
That's how game breaking it is, I guess.
So yeah, again, the Nexus thing, and then it's probably because the surrender vote. Maybe that's why the surrender vote went out, so he pressed W.
That's what he
That's
needs.
the first time he did it. That's what he needs. Okay, so really good takeaways, I think, from this. Again, this is a game that you could easily get tricked that, we played awesome with Rakan 0, 2, and 12. Sort of to wrap up this one here, Cupcake, so let's say someone watches this, they're inspired, they love the way you talk about Rakan, they're like, okay, I like the finance, so I want to start to be more aggressive as a support player, roaming windows, all that. What advice would you give to someone learning, just picking up Rakan? What are some big 20%ers that they should focus on at the beginning?
Get to level 3 in one piece, and then understand your champion's limitations, right? You're not designed to win lane. You're looking for opportunities to be at fights. Fights are going to happen when your jungler is pressuring. That's the number one thing. So sometimes you're going to be comfortable doing nothing. That's when your jungle and maybe your mid laner, they're just not doing anything coming out of base. And then when they are doing things, you're there, you're ready, you're fighting. So the first thing is to actually be at fights. And that's easier said than done. So moving on from that, it's then going to be executing, right? That's going to take a lot of time, a lot of reps. This is not a champion for, I'm not sure what personality I would describe, but you want to be comfortable just getting messy, getting dirty, making mistakes, being a part of a lot of action, and just slowly improving day by day. It's never going to feel like a perfect Rakan game, right? You just got to be comfortable with the mess and with the learning journey, because it's a champion that takes a long time to get good at, but that shouldn't deter you, because high skill ceilings can be fun as long as you know what you're signing up for, right? I think that's important to note.
Talking about your Rakan learning journey, Cupcake, is there something that was there like an aha moment where Rakan started to click for you? Did you struggle to learn Rakan initially?
I think I have a pretty good process at learning champions because I'm just such a psycho and I'm so comfortable testing my limits that I figure it out pretty quickly. So I will have died a lot on Rakan, and then I'll be like, oh, okay, so my E is pretty important, or I'm pretty squishy naturally. Kind of similar to Thresh. With Thresh, if you just take every hook, you just die, maybe like Lee Sin as well. And then you're like, oh, okay, so this moment I shouldn't, this moment I should. It's hard to learn those limits if you just are too scared and don't do anything. So, on one hand, testing limits is good for learning. On the other hand, here I am. I'm pretty good at support coaching and Rakan, and I can give you concepts for you to immediately take away, and then you don't have to do all of the inting that I did to learn as well.
And last question here for you, Cupcake, is Rakan, you don't really probably see it like that much, especially in the lower ranks as a support. Sort of be like a bit of a Rakan salesman here. Why should people look to pick up Rakan or add it to their champion pool, their support champion pool?
Yeah, so I think Rakan, again, that high skill ceiling is a lot of fun, and you do want to have fun in League of Legends, right? And he's kind of like a step back from the extremes, like the Pyke, the Thresh, the Bard. These are really hard, unique champions with ginormous skill ceilings. Rakan is a little bit more of that middleman where he is tough, but he's not like you have to one trick or you can't play the champion. So, if you're a little bit intimidated by the extreme high skill ceiling champions, Rakan could be a good alternative. He's also a good champion to just round out engager pools, because he does share similarities with engagers, right? He is melee, he engages, but he also has good matchups that pair with engager champions. Like if you have a Nautilus or a Leona or a Rel, they're stronger early, they want to fight. Rakan, he scales a little bit more while still having that engage that people like to do, right? Like if you like playing engagers, then Rakan is still going to be there for you, just with a little bit of a twist on it. Otherwise, he's just so unique, and I just find him so much fun, like jumping in and out and always being there for the action and having us a surprising amount of utility and sustain and being independent. All of these things are a lot of fun. So great to round out engager pools. Don't have to one trick, has a high skill ceiling, and a lot of fun.
Love it. Cupcake, you're our head of support in the Bot Lane Academy, coaching weekdays. Any final shout outs you want to mention? Any Rakan players or support students you're sort of working with at the moment? Any sort of final comments here before we wrap up?
Yeah, so I did recently release the Rakan guide, which has been much awaited by some of the students who have been looking to add a new champion and who have played engagers and want that extra champion. So I'm working with many Rakan students at the moment, and it's been a lot of fun. And we've been leaving lane pretty quickly to learn fighting. So yeah, I'm just enjoying working with everyone. We have a couple of Wyats actually, both who play Rakan, and they've been excelling at progressing out of lane and finding more fights. And you can really tell when I can tell when my students are starting to be more disciplined with how they're using their spells. I also want to shout out Aaron, who has picked up Rakan recently, and he is really honing in on the concepts and especially finding like a short to mid range Rakan W. He's doing everything in his power to try and find those. So I think that's really cool. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it.
Awesome. Very informative. Yeah, this is our first support episode. Well, Cupcake and support episode. We're going to get you on for a lot more support episodes in the future for We Teach League YouTube channel, the Challenger versus Emerald series. So hopefully next time I'm going to have some high quality support questions, especially, I'm going to steal that warding knowledge away from you as well, Cupcake, about, when I play versus you in solo queue as well.
Sounds good. That was a lot of fun.
Good work, guys. We'll see ya in our next episode.